What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You are now tuned into another episode of The Forbidden Scrolls Live. This is our church. This is what we do every Sunday. So I am happy you guys could join us again. You know what it is, the Legacy FHP. That is the Legacy Foundation for Human Progress, the planetary headquarters for all of your celestial information. And today we are picking up where we left off, talking about Adam and Eve from the Urantia book, paper 74. We finished, I think, at part 3, and we're going to pick up at part 4. I think it's called The First Upheaval. So if you want to follow along, you can go check it out. I think the link is in the description. If not, we'll put it in right now. And happy Sunday. I know it's the end of your week, hard week, and you're finally like, yes, another episode of The Forbidden Scrolls. I can kick off my shoes and relax, finally get a load off and talk about some mysterious celestial topics. So I'm glad to be here with you guys. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back, family. If you're a new viewer, welcome. Welcome to the cult. Welcome to the, we got some Kool-Aid in the back. No, but this is what we do. We try to analyze and dissect reality and then figure out a mental holographic counterpart, a celestial image, so that you can kind of integrate the two, so you can see reality and then also start to see it from a cosmic level. And then you start to get that stereoscopic vision, that stereoscopic mental vision, so that you can start to see the cosmos for what it is. We're going to talk about it a lot more. We're going to eat some, what is it? Some grits with a nice little raisin on the top. Shout out to the sinkhole baby.
Sinkhole baby.
Sinkhole baby. Shout out to Theo Vaughn. And that's it. I don't really want to give a big preface on what the Adam and Eve story is. If you haven't already seen episode 1, go see episode 1 and we'll really break it down. We're probably going to dive into the nitty gritty and go down the rabbit holes as we read along. So I guess we'll just save it for then, because we
Yeah.
can all three explain the Adam and Eve story before we read. But like I said, go see episode 1. So if you're here, please hit that little thumbs up button, hit that like button, helps us get to the front page. And you already know what it is. Sub it up, sub it up. Hit that little subscribe button so that you are up to date with all the celestial information. If you guys got anything to say, because I kind of just want to jump into it.
Yeah, I'm ready to jump on in. I mean, talking about that stereoscopic vision, there is the world we can see, the concrete, practical world we live in, we deal with every day. And then there's the unseen, the realm of mystery, all the things we can't explain, like ancient history, why we're here, and what awaits us in the great beyond. And there are many, many concepts out there, as many concepts as there are people, many belief systems about what explanations can be offered for these mysteries. Um, Alan Watts once said, "What you believe in should be worth believing in." And I mean, like, all this stuff is stuff we can't necessarily prove with hard facts, but while we're going down the rabbit hole of belief systems, it might as well be a fun one. And out of all the Adam and Eve stories I've encountered, this is definitely the most fun Adam and Eve, the most interesting and engaging. Uh, so yeah, I'm ready to jump right on in.
Yeah, I don't nothing too much to preface. I think of this as the Adam and Eve lineage, the Adamic lineage, the intergalactic Adamic lineage. How does life get planted all across the cosmos? And what is our kind of role in it? We're going from trying to move away from an Earth-centric view into a universe view where, no, humans are not the only people here or in the universe that exist. And so what are the necessary answers, questions to ask, and data that we can look at? And the Urantia book has a lot of really good data. So it doesn't matter if you believe this or believe that, just weigh all the stories. And that's what we're here to run through with you.
Yeah,
Hey,
you know
man.
what? A good
I like
point I
that
can
shirt you're
make.
wearing too, by the way. You're looking classy, Tay.
Looking classy.
I got some new drip.
That's right.
A good point I can make, because the title is, Adam and Eve were not the first people, but they were ETs. Um,
Boom! Dropping
when
bombs early, dog.
when a lot of independent researchers start looking into ancient history and seeing how connected all the ancient cultures were, but also the fact that we're so different from animals, we stand apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. We're kind of an anomaly, you know. This one animal that has just mastered the physical world around us. We're communicating advanced ideas, doing arithmetic and all that stuff. Um, there's an explanation for that. A lot of people will argue, well, clearly aliens must have touched down to experiment with our DNA and uplift us somehow. Um, what the Urantia book argues, something similar, but it's that evolution is guided by angelic forces, and Adam and Eve are just one of those beings in the celestial hierarchy that, according to a divine plan, come down and actually genetically uplift us. So, uh, best of both worlds. You got Christianity and ancient aliens. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Rocking my cross and my UFO right now.
Amen, brother. He knows the truth. He knows the secrets. I want my cake and what? I can have my
And I
cake
want to
and
eat
eat
it.
it too.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, so Adam and Eve weren't the first people. They landed 38,000 years ago. They were celestial beings and they mated with us and they uplifted our genetics. This sounds similar to the Anunnaki story, but it is not. The Anunnaki landed earlier. The Anunnaki landed 500,000 years ago. So you have two successive waves of celestial beings landing from different star systems, by the way. Um, Anunnaki first, and then they rebelled and went bad. They aligned with Lucifer. Half of them did. A little more than half of them did. Some of them stayed good. So there's good and bad Anunnaki to already set the stage. And then Adam and Eve land 250,000 years later. No, sorry, about 460,000 years later. Um, Adam and
A
Eve
long
land,
time.
and they were the good ones. And in essence, Adam and Eve linked up with the good Anunnaki, and it was Adam and Eve and the good Anunnaki versus the bad Anunnaki. And that's the current stage of events that we're getting into with this paper. I know it's not really that much to keep in the back of your head. Two sets of celestials landed, one a long time ago, the Anunnaki, and then one 38,000 years ago, Adam and Eve. And now they're kind of bashing heads, and we're caught in the middle of it. And they both mated with us. They both fucked us. So,
In
and
more
then
ways than one.
yeah, and that's how you get these stories of the mighty men of old. That's how you get the pantheon of Greek gods. There's literally like celestial hybrids, giants and stuff like that. And they had like probably crazy powers, like telekinesis, that kind of stuff. Being able like telepathy. These were literally half celestials, half humans. So it's an interesting story. We want to dive into it and let's see what the Urantia book has to say, I guess. Does anybody want to start it off today?
I could start us off.
Hell yeah.
It's getting juicy. Part 4, The First Upheaval. That night, the night following the sixth day, while Adam and Eve slumbered, strange things were transpiring in the vicinity of the Father's temple in the central sector of Eden. There, under the rays of the mellow moon, hundreds of enthusiastic and excited men and women listened for hours to the impassioned pleas of their leaders. They meant well, but they simply could not understand the simplicity of the fraternal and democratic manner of their new rulers. And long before daybreak, the new and temporary administrators of this of, um, world affairs reached a virtually unanimous conclusion that Adam and his mate were altogether too modest and unassuming. They decided that divinity had descended to earth in bodily form, that Adam and Eve were in reality gods, or else so near such an estate as to be worthy of reverent worship. The amazing events of the first 6 days of Adam and Eve on earth were entirely too much for the unprepared minds of even the world's best men. Their heads were in a whirl. They were swept along with the proposal to bring the noble pair up to the Father's temple at high noon in order that everyone might bow down in respectful worship and prostrate themselves in humble submission. And the garden dwellers were really sincere in all of this. Van protested. Amadon was absent, being in charge of the guard of honor, which had remained behind with Adam and Eve overnight. But Van's protest was swept aside. He was told that he was likewise too modest, too unassuming, that he was not far from a god himself. How else had he lived so long on earth? And how had he brought about such a great event as the advent of Adam? And as the excited Edenites were about to seize him and carry him up to the mount for adoration, Dan made his way out through the throng and, being able to communicate with the Midwayers, sent their leader in great haste to Adam. It was near dawn of their seventh day on earth that Adam and Eve heard the startling news of the proposal of these well meaning but misguided mortals. And then, even while the passenger birds were swiftly winging to bring them to the temple, the Midwayers, being able to do such things, transported Adam and Eve to the Father's temple. It was early on the morning of the seventh day, and from the mount of their so recent reception, that Adam held forth an explanation of the orders of divine sonship, and made clear to these earth minds that only the Father and those whom he designates may be worshipped. Adam made it plain that he would accept any honor and receive all respect, but worship never. It was a momentous day, and just before noon, about the time of the arrival of the seraphic messenger bearing the Jerusalem acknowledgement of the installation of the world's rulers, Adam and Eve, moving apart from the throng, pointed to the Father's temple and said, "Go you now to the material emblem of the Father's invisible presence, and bow down in worship of him who made us all and who keeps us living. And let this act be the sincere pledge that you will never again be tempted to worship anyone but God." They all did as Adam directed. The material son and daughter stood alone on the mount with bowed heads while the people prostrated themselves about the temple. And this was the origin of the Sabbath day tradition. Always in Eden, the seventh day was devoted to the noontide assembly at the temple. Long it was the custom to devote this day to self-culture. The forenoon was devoted to physical improvement, the noontime to spiritual worship, the afternoon to mind culture, while the evening was spent in social rejoicing. This was never the law in Eden, but it was the custom, as long as the Adamic administration held sway on earth.
A lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack.
Yeah, the first thing that immediately comes to mind, last episode we did talking about Easter. The actual Easter holiday, the origins are kind of murky. No one really knows exactly. Like it's apparent it's some kind of pagan thing with the lady austere or whatever and the hares and the eggs, but no one really knows the origins. Yet, because our families practice it because it's a fun holiday, it's been passed down for hundreds and hundreds of years. Likewise, the Sabbath day, the seventh day of the week, is something we all kind of recognize. Like the seventh day is something special. We have a 7 day week. Seventh day is kind of a time of rest. Maybe get a little communion in. And, the Hebrews, they practiced this in ancient times. But it looks like even they had adopted that from an earlier tradition stretching all the way back to the Garden of Eden. So I wonder if maybe some of those prehistoric settlers traveling through Göbekli Tepe had a similar practice on the seventh day. I mean, clearly, for that to have survived with the Hebrew culture, it looks like people have been practicing something along those lines pretty much for all of human history.
Yeah, and I guess bringing a call back to episode 1, referring to the 7-day tradition, how we got the Sabbath and the holy day on the seventh day and the 7-day week. And talking about that originated when Adam and Eve first landed. And that story got garbled into what we currently have today of the 7 days of creation. But it wasn't really the 7 days of creation. It was the 7 days that Adam and Eve first landed. And on
So,
the first day, they were in grief, uh, extremely depressed because they realized that there was no celestial broadcasts on Earth. They
and it
couldn't
was so
send
lonely.
messages to their homies. It was so lonely, and it really set in that they're on a planet of isolation, a quarantine planet due to the rebellion. When they figured this out, they were like, "Oh my god," distraught. That's the word I was looking for. Um, the second and third day was them studying the animals, right? And giving them names and then kind of doing some bureaucratic stuff about the roll calls and receiving titular ownership authority through the from the Melchizedek's meeting with Van. All the bureaucracy of hierarchy and administration. Um and then on the fourth day they addressed the garden assembly. They were just talking to the people. they astounded the groups of people because for the first time, they saw a male and a female working in an equal partnership. Because all the humans on Earth previously kind of had this power dynamic of one sex ruling over the other sex. We still have it today, but they were shocked that they saw Adam and Eve operating equally. Go watch episode 1. I say a lot of funny stuff about that. But it's the way it should be. That toxic masculinity where you're trying to dominate the woman and the woman needs to be in the submissive role is incorrect. I do believe in divine masculinity, as in being able to function in the most toughest, craziest, gnarliest situations. Keep your composure. Make sure as
Yeah.
many people can get out of there safe and understand the right thing to do, making critical decisions in critical moments. That's manliness, responsibility, getting it done and not being lazy. But that can all come without having to make the woman be put and forced into a submissive role. And same thing with women trying to force a male into a submissive role just because, you've been doing it to us for X amount of time. So now we're going to do it to you. That's not a correct way to think either. So I think that's a very important concept that people need to start thinking about in today's society, because they're so quick to just flip the switch, like go into crazy chaos mode, just be in this over this gender identity crises when it should
Yeah.
be equality. So let's just keep that in the back of your mind when you're operating on planet Earth.
Yeah, just like there's a divine feminine, there's a divine masculine as well, and I think Jesus Christ was probably the most badass example of that, you know? I mean,
Exactly.
literally facing the ultimate public humiliation, being under so much pressure, still maintaining his composure, keeping his cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Like a boss.
yeah, just handling responsibility like a boss.
Hmm.
Doesn't even phase you. And if it does,
Because he is the boss.
yeah, yeah. If it does, you still keep your composure, keep your cool about
Hmm. Yep. Fifth day was occupied with temporary government. I love this part. The administration, which was to function until the Melchizedek receivers should leave Urantia. In episode 1, I tied it to another paragraph in Urantia where it says that the higher government officials in the cosmos look at Urantia Earth that it's so messed up that they're actually letting leaders at the lower level, at the immediate level. So they're not making decisions about the planet super high up. They're letting lower level leaders on the planet make decisions and do unorthodox new type of operations in order to get the planet to that next stage. And that makes me excited, because that means people like you who are listening to this, if you wake up every day and you show the desire, because I'm serious, guys, your guys' desire gets measured. Your guys want gets measured. That's what the angels measure you off of. And if you guys keep desiring that every single day, you could be used. You could be assigned to one of these special operations, these unorthodox operations that the angels are doing in order to get the planet to the next epoch. So step it up.
Yeah,
You guys ever seen that movie, The Adjustment Bureau? You guys want to be in something
I
like
still gotta
that?
watch that.
Yeah, that's a fire movie. But that's kind of cool. I just like that. So it's the fifth day, and then the sixth day was the devotion to the devoted to the inspection of numerous types of men and animals. So Adam was giving names because Adam and Eve were actually scientists in the cosmos. They were specialists in how to apply exotic energy to biological life forms. And this was their specialty before they came to Earth, and they were directors of this for thousands of years, like a long, long time. So they knew about human animal anatomy, and they came and gave names to all the animals. So that's in our Bible, like Taychilla brought up in episode 1. Adam gives names to all the animals, and then he desires for a partner. I guess that somebody threw that in there because that's not really how it went down. He already had a partner, but just highlighting the differences right there. And then that brings us up in 6 days. That's all it took. These beings were so majestic. Humans had been around for damn near 500,000 years already. So they had a lot of time to build and develop their own culture. And then they witnessed celestial beings like Adam and Eve land. And they're so majestic, so elegant, so smart. In 6 days, the humans start looking at them like, oh, these are gods. It only took them 6 days to impact them that much. Do you realize how magnificent these beings are?
Point.
So much that the human beings, the most advanced humans on the planet, literally were about to go on their knees and start worshiping them. And this was what we're talking about with the first upheaval. This is where we're at. And Adam and Eve, they realized how screwed up and backwards our planet was, because you're not supposed to worship anybody besides the Father or the Son or the Holy Spirit. You don't worship any celestial being, and your entire ascent and your entire adventure through the cosmos, no matter who you meet, you never worship them, because they're just another being created like you are in the universe, and their father is the same as your father. They're just a different type of cousin. They just look a little bit different, have a different origin, but none of you are God. So you never worship any celestial being unless it's Jesus or the Father. So these beings were about to start worshiping Adam and Eve, and then at Magma just read Adam and Eve did not accept it, and they say, "Go you now and prostrate yourself in the temple of the unseen Father." And he made all the humans in the garden do it to really drive that point in front of everybody, like, no, you will never do this, and if you try to do this, we're going to force you guys all into the temple to get your mind right. So it's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, when you say that it really set in how backwards things were, I think it goes to show that the 500,000 BC, the Anunnaki touching down, the prince's staff and all that, it shows how that really did backfire, because had that been successful, people would have already known there is a
Exactly.
cosmic father, a one God creator over everything. And that information was lost because they were reckless with how they handled that administration. Um, Some I wanted to bring up, you were talking about your desire is measured by
Yeah.
celestial. Um, Both of these books go into that really well. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Master Key System by Charles Haanel.
He gets
Both touch on
$5
their
every time he plugs those.
yeah, yeah.
Affiliate
Check it out.
marketing.
They're only written in like 1920 or something like that, but still getting royalties. But no, I bring it up because I haven't encountered another book like it. Either of those, especially the Master Key System, and the way it talks about your burning desire is basically your way of drawing on infinite intelligence. And infinite intelligence, as you know, is God the Father.
I
It
like
is
that.
this infinite eternal intelligence, and it can help you solve any problem you have, but you have to have a desire, like, I am doing this, it is going to happen, I'm going to make it happen. And you don't have to have it all figured out. That's what God's will is. God has it figured
Yes.
out for you. You just have to be willing to do God's will, and he'll lay the path out in front of you.
Seek and you shall find.
That's right.
Or some people call
Ooh,
it the
that's
law of attraction. There's a thousand
That
different
too.
ways to kind of say it.
manifestation.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Manifestation,
legit
yeah.
too. There's something to that.
I'm fucking manifesting right now, dog.
Well, I call
Leave
it.
me alone. I'm manifesting.
I kind of
Just
call
kidding.
it to simplify it, to take away some of the esoteric nature of it, and just give a baseline. You just consider it the law of attention. What you put your attention on. If you're looking for something, you're going to be casting a sort of a limited field of view, and you're going to be looking at a bunch of different things, or you're going to be open to possibilities. When you're driving around out in the streets, for example, when you're looking for a restaurant, you're going to find restaurants that you wouldn't have noticed before if you weren't looking for a restaurant. And so then you're going to find the one that connects with you the most, or somebody's going to be like talking, you're walking down the street and they're talking and they're like, "Oh, I just had the best burger over at this place." And you're like, "Oh, shoot, I got to check it out. I'm looking for restaurants." So by that law of attention, what you look for, you're going to be receiving, kind of listening to things you wouldn't be listening to before. So, if it's Think and Grow Rich, you're trying to figure out how to do like finances, business, self-employment, all that type of stuff. Like, how do I make money online? Then you're going to be looking and you're going to be watching a bunch of YouTube videos. The weird part, the esoteric part of this though, and the reason people almost get religious when they start to get into the law of attraction as if there's something magical happening, is that once you put your desire or your intention onto something, sometimes it can feel like there are moments where the universe conspires to bring you the doors, like they sort of open the doors, or the synchronicities, or you meet the right people.
Synchronicities.
And that's where it can start to feel like a magical adventure. Now, I think that is the real nature of the universe. It is like that. because the
Yeah.
universe is based on mind, not matter. Mind precedes matter. So when you use your mind to desire, to put your intention on something, it does open up the natural gateways of other minds to present you opportunities. So that's just my kind of simplified breakdown. Um,
That
yeah.
well
That's
put.
cool. Yeah, who would have thought, you know, if you think about something, the probability of something happening about it will go up. You know,
Right.
like, like it makes sense, obviously. If I think about making videos all the time, I'm gonna fucking start making videos. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
um, if I want pizza, I'm gonna go look for pizza places. Oh shit! Whoa! Fuck!
Manifested.
Magic unlocked.
Yeah.
No, but like it makes sense. I agree with that. Like the universe is consciousness based. As funny as we're joking about it, it's true. It is consciousness space, and I think of it like I always think of it like a matrix hologram. I talked about this to you guys before, but for the viewers out there, like I think of myself emitting a grid, an energy grid. Like think of a lattice structure, you know, like a piece of like math paper with those lines, like a grid structure, but in three dimensions. And I picture the lattice in green for some reason, lime green, like matrixy,
Might as well.
and it emits from me, and everything that has consciousness, everything has a little matrix grid emanating from it. So if you could like wear matrix glasses so that the physical reality would disappear, then you would just see like different shades and strengths of matrix grids based off what's there. So one time I was thinking about this back in the day, I was walking down a mall and then I saw a little stand, a kiosk in front of me. And that kiosk was emanating a matrix grid, a green grid. And so was I. And as I walked closer to it, the probability of me interacting with that kiosk goes up, you know? Um, as I get closer to that cell phone stand, because I needed a cell phone case, I needed to buy one because I just got a new phone. And I went and bought the case. And it's just showing you that everything's a field of probability. It's all probability fields, and we're a bunch of fields. And the closer the fields get to each other, the more probability you have of interacting with the other field. And when you give off consciousness forms, I think the universe and the planetary field interacts with it. And depending on how strong you put your energy towards it, the more probability it will have to manifest in reality. This can be with positive and negative things. But going off what you said, Magma, you kind of gave the secret. Like there's a secret code that you can
The
unlock that
secret.
matrix field. And you said it's desire. When your desire, the angels, like I said, the angels can measure your desire. And that's nice. You can desire to want new Jordans. You can desire to want to be the best NBA player and just be a piece of shit. That's fine. But if you desire that hard enough, you know, the universe will conspire and you will get there because that's just the nature of the universe. But like I was talking about, if you give off a specific desire to the angelic point of view, there are certain concepts that if you line up your desire with, it will actually like short circuit reality and you'll start to achieve like a secret magical pathway. And that's if your desire matches up with the desire of the cosmos or the desire of the Father. And that's what the Urantia book says is the highest prayer. It's not my will, but your will be done. It's what the Father wills and the Son desires is. So whatever the Father wills, and then if we can get that desire in us and it matches up and then we create a sympathetic vibration and you create that
Mm-hmm.
standing wave, you now bypass all the other desires. Desires of getting shoes and desires of becoming a football player, those are lower. You now achieve that cosmic desire and it kind of like gives you a direct connection to that source. And that's what we call doing God's will. It's actually a geometric harmonic process within the mind body spirit complex. It's adjusting your mind. In your mind, you need to see and desire what the cosmos wants. In your actions, you need to act literally with your arms and legs, move objects, build and create things that conspires to change the planet for the positivity, for the good. And then you use those two things for value because you want to see and share the value with other people and spread that. If you can get all your mind, body, spirit complexes aligned with that desire, the angels will back you up because that is God's will. So we're teaching you right now the secret, not the secret, the secret
Jeez.
to reality. So take that, do what you want with it.
That's That's pretty cool. I thought it was interesting how you talked about imagining a matrix, like a lattice of information kind of outside of you. There's this belief system I encountered is pretty recent. I think it just originated in the 90s or something like that. I got to look into it. I don't know too much about it, but it's called human design, and it proposes we have this invisible kind of matrix lattice around you,
Ooh,
and they kind of
that's hard.
connect it to the chakras and Kabbalah and all that kind of stuff. Um, Super complicated. It's like
Oh,
celestial circuitry
the G,
going
the
on.
G center. What's that?
The G center, yeah, it's better than a G spot. You
The
got a
G.
G center. They've done it for animals. You see, like, there's a different configuration for rabbits and horses and dogs, and I've seen it for
Oh,
fish and all this.
that's
Um,
trippy.
then they got like different personality types or something, manifestor, projector, generator, reflector. I don't know. So I gotta look into it, but I think it's a pretty interesting idea. That you might have like a divine matrix outside of you, and you're constantly programming the nodes in this lattice, and their relationships are changing or something. Pretty cool. Little
Yeah,
over my head, but I thought I'd bring it up.
The Keys of Enoch calls it the biolattice matrix.
The biolattice matrix. Okay,
Yep.
that could have inspired this belief system here. It was pretty recent development.
Shout out to
Very
JJ
interesting.
Hertach. Shout out to Desiree. So let's keep reading.
Let's do it.
Unless anybody else got anything else now.
Who's next?
Platform coming to a close. I guess I'll pick it up. Part 5. Adam's administration. For almost 7 years after Adam's arrival, the Melchizedek receivers remained on duty. But the time finally came when they turned the administration of world affairs over to Adam and returned to Jerusalem. My pet theory is Jerusalem is in Orion. The farewell of the receivers occupied the whole of a day, and during the evening, the individual Melchizedeks gave Adam and Eve their parting advice and best wishes. Adam had several times requested his advisors to remain on earth with him, but always were these petitions denied. The time had come when the material sons must assume full responsibility for the conduct of world affairs. And so, at midnight, the seraphic transport of Satania left the planet with 14 beings for Jerusalem. The translation of Van and Amadon occurring simultaneously with the departure of the 12 Melchizedeks. So Adam and Eve, so the Melchizedeks were holding the planet down along with the good Anunnaki. And then when Adam and Eve landed, they were begging him to stay because the planet was so screwed up. And the Melchizedeks and the good Anunnaki were like, you got to handle it on your own, dog. We've been here for 200 something thousand years.
We're ready to go.
So Adam, it was a sad day.
Bye, Van and Amadon.
Yep. Phew, we got to do an entire chapter on those fools.
Oh yeah.
Or episode, whatever. All went fairly well for a time on Urantia, and it appeared that Adam would, eventually, be able to develop some plan for promoting the gradual extension of the Edenic civilization. Pursuant to the advice of the Melchizedeks, he began to foster the arts of manufacture with the idea of developing trade relations with the outside world. When Eden was disrupted, there were over 100 primitive manufacturing plants in operation. Wow.
Huh.
And extensive trade relations with the nearby tribes had been established.
That's
Dude,
Tariffs?
that's so sick. Right. They got the Adam and Eve Trump. It's like we're gonna put tariffs on all of them. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of sick. It sucks that the plan got disrupted because they were already having like trade centers back 40,000 years ago, you know? If we would have been consistently evolving, we would have hit the Industrial Revolution way earlier than fucking.
For sure.
Probably.
Well, we did, man. Atlantis, it was there. It was the highest
Ooh.
civilization, and then Egypt. Egypt is only a shadow of Atlantis.
I
Mm.
want to believe.
Sign me up for that trip.
We
I'm
got
taking it.
an Atlantis episode coming up. I got a source
Ooh.
material that
That's right,
is
baby.
gonna blow you out of this world.
Oh, nice.
Dude, I got some shit on Atlantis too, baby. I'm gonna bring out them. I'm not gonna say it. Edgar Casey, I'm not gonna say it. Underwater pyramid, I'm not gonna say it. Whatever. All right, let's keep going. Trade with the nearby tribes. That's what's up. Wonder if they're ripping them off. Whatever. You seen that first Have you heard of the first Sumerian tablet that was like ever recorded?
Mm.
It
Wasn't
was
it a
like a complaint.
transaction?
Was it
It was
like
a
a scam?
complaint about
Or
copper. Yeah, some
oh.
guy like told him it was like real copper, and he got scammed. And
Ah,
can we let's just go over it real quick? Is that
Try and
fine?
pull it up.
yeah, if you can find
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's the Ian Nasser tablet. Um,
So this is one of the oldest Sumerian tablets that we have, and it's a record of a business transaction, trade relations and
yes, yeah.
bureaucracy and complaints.
All right, I got it right here. Put it in the link. It's in the chat.
Do you need me to pull up, or are you just going to share your screen?
Yeah, that's cool. If you want to just show the people, that'd be cool. And then here's the image of it. I'm gonna copy and paste it. So that's the image. I think that is the oldest cuneiform tablet we have. And this is what it says. Tell Ian Nasser, Nanny sends the following message. When you came, you said to me as follows: I will give Gimil Sin when he comes fine quality copper ingots. You left then, but you did not do what you promised me. You put ingots which were not good before my messenger, Sin, and said, if you want to take them, take them. If you don't want to take them, go away. What do you take me for, that you treat somebody like me with such contempt? I have sent as messengers gentlemen like ourselves to collect the bag with my money deposited with you, but you have treated me with contempt by sending them back to me empty-handed several times, and that through enemy territory. Is there anyone among the merchants who trade with Telmun who has treated me in this way? You alone treat my messengers with contempt.
Whoa.
On account of that one trifling mina of silver which I owe you, you feel free to speak in such a way while I have given to the palace on your behalf 1,080 pounds of copper, and Boom has likewise given 1,080 pounds of copper, apart from what we both have had written on a sealed tablet to be kept in the temple of Samas. Have you treated me for that copper? You have withheld my money bag from me in enemy territory. It is now up to you to restore my money to me in full. Take cognizance that from now on, I will not accept here any copper from you. Take that this is not of fine quality. I shall, from now on, select and take the ingots individually in my own yard, and I shall exercise against you my right of rejection because you have treated me with contempt.
That's fascinating.
Yep.
How
So
old?
that's like
What's
the
the date
first.
on this one? Do you know?
Good question. Let's see.
It's fascinating because that's the first tablet we found.
17,000, 1700
17.
before Christ.
1700
Wow.
BC. Okay. Someone in the comments said this would make a great copy pasta.
Yeah, I think Reddit has actually already done it. Now the reason I bring this up is I'm gonna put it right here. Let's see.
It's interesting. That's the earliest tablet we found. So there are probably many, many others that have just been lost to time. But it shows they were already in the habit of recording transactions and going back and forward with this system. Obviously, this wasn't the very first tablet created in this way. It's the first we found, but it's cool. It shows a glimpse into that world of ancient Sumeria and how transactions were going on, but with rare metals and stuff like that. Cool.
Let's see if I can find it.
I'm aware that some of the early Sumerian transactions were involving beer. They would pay people in beer.
God damn, where is it? So I'm trying to find it on Google Maps. I'm having a hard time right now. But Ian Nasser, guess who his neighbor was?
Oh.
Abraham.
What? For real?
He was Abraham's next door neighbor. Yeah, it's like you can go visit the Ian Nasser house, and right next to it is Abraham's house too. I'm trying to find the Google Maps. Just just to give you guys a little, just connecting that whole business trade to the Garden of Eden, Sumerian Anunnakis. I know the timeline's a little off, but I think it's a little bit funny for the viewers that the oldest cuneiform text is a complaint about old industry and manufacturing, and that, is a descendant of the garden.
Yeah.
That's like old garden culture right there.
Well, to link it in here to the Adam and Eve story, remember, viewers, Adam and Eve are meant to create both a material and spiritual culture. The Anunnaki were also supposed to do this, but they failed. They totally split up. They had 100 of them. They were supposed to take their 100 people, their 100 superhumans, and work with all these different tribes and introduce manufacturing, trade, agriculture. And instead, they sort of broke up the tribes and ended up having them war with each other, all keeping their own factions and ideas on how to rule the planet. So, when Adam and Eve arrive, the core basics of civilization has to do with how do you control and take the earthly resources around you and actually provide for a bunch of people living in one location. That's literally what a city is. You got a bunch of people in one spot. If they're nomads, it's because they keep looking for resources in different areas. But if you want to have a city, a civilization in one place, you need to have resource management. And so you have the resources directly around you. We need to build our city right next to this river because then we'll have water, irrigation. And then for food, there's only this much existing wildlife, which means we're going to need farms. The whole farming, there's a word for it, farmeries, when you raise, I guess it's part of agriculture, raising cows and stuff. And then there's, the plants and stuff. And trade relations are also important because the resources you do not produce yourself can come from the cities next to yours. So this is like in the Adam and Eve story, one of the first things that they're getting started with the Edenic civilization. 100 primitive manufacturing plants with extensive trade relations with nearby tribes. And remember, in Genesis, the command from God, as written in Genesis, is subdue the earth and multiply, be fruitful and multiply. So it's have kids and subdue the earth. Subdue is talking, people think that from reading Genesis, it's just like this perfect utopia, but that's not even a correct interpretation. If you look at the wording that God is telling them, you don't need to subdue a utopia. You subdue a raw environment. You have to take it under control, and you have to stabilize it. So that's what Adam and Eve here are doing in this story. They're stabilizing the culture, the environment, the resources, the civilizations, establishing trade relations. This is the story behind the story. So I hope you can see that, as the viewer, that we're not just looking at a made-up story. This is like an explanation of the tiny version of the myth that we already have.
Yeah, it makes sense why Adam and Eve coming down to help build a culture and kind of uplift us would be necessary because, like D-Bake, you had mentioned earlier, for like 500,000 years, people were here, but we were still kind of living in this primitive state. Although we are capable of great potential, we are also capable of falling into the same routines, just like other animals, and kind of reaching a stalemate. And you can see this with like uncontacted tribes out in New Guinea and stuff like that. Like, it is because we have contact with other people and we start disputing over resources and trying to figure it out, trading stuff back and forward, that we're able to develop. But if we're kind of left in isolation, we can kind of stagnate for thousands of years. And so that's why, the angels put so many resources into evolving life on a world to get evolutionary will creatures. They don't want to throw it away and leave it entirely up to chance. So that's why Adam and Eve would come down, try to uplift us, teach us the basics of culture, so we can try to get there faster, streamline the process.
Yeah, it's nice of them too. Just like if you saw a homie struggling, you'd be like, "Hey, no, homie, come on. I know how to do this. I'll show you the ropes. You help out
Yeah,
your brother. That's what they're doing, you know." And flying around the universe manifesting bodies so they can fuck local populations of people. But it's
and that.
nice of them. It's
So,
all right, Clownhead.
I found. Let me one more thing. So the Abraham connection with this Urantia. So the
See the picture I put in the chat?
let's see here.
Pull that up for the people if you want.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
House of House of Enosur, House of Prophet Abraham.
Wow.
So I guess
They probably knew each other.
to add a little more context, this is in the ancient city of Ur, and guess what we're reading?
Yes.
The Urantia book, the Book
The
of Earth.
Urantia book.
Ur is like one of the ancient cities in our timeline. That's another example of sort of like how the
Amen.
root words are being used, to form the English words in this book. The city of Ur is not the first city. There's other cities, but it's just an example. I mean, even the word earth sounds like Ur, Urth. We just have a different spelling, Earth, earth, Ur. So there's a root word analysis, kind of representing these concepts.
Well, the word in the English language, look it up. What's mean? It means primitive, original, or earliest. So when you say like the text, it's the first text. Ur is like the first, like the civilization. If you put before it as like a suffix, it means the first one.
Okay.
It's interesting. It makes me think of this movie I saw recently. Here, it was a pretty good movie. Had Tom Hanks in it. The entire movie was shot from one camera perspective over time, and it shows all the people from like early tribes to like a house getting built and everyone that lives in this house and stuff. And it makes me think, what if you were to film a movie in that location where you see like the transactions of early civilizations of Abraham?
That'd be so sick. Like time lapse.
Yeah, this copper transaction that went afoul, that'd be a really cool movie.
Abraham's actually there watching them yell at each other.
Be a good
Where
movie.
Abraham stirred up the controversy.
I told you not to buy that copper. or Abraham.
They're like competing business.
To him.
Yeah, Abraham made the connect.
Yeah, hook him up. That's hilarious. All right. Good connection. Yeah, Urantia. Urartu, nice. The kingdom of Urantia, the lost Proto-Sumerian civilization in around Lake Van. For ages, Adam and Eve had been instructed in the technique of improving a world in readiness for their specialized contributions to the advancement of evolutionary civilization. But now they are face to face with pressing problems, such as the establishment of law and order in a world of savages, barbarians, and semi-civilized human beings. Aside from the cream of the Earth's population assembled in the garden, only a few groups here and there were at all ready for the reception of the Adamic culture. A bunch of cavemen. I wonder how gruesome it was. I wonder if they're like eating each other and shit. Like,
probably.
Yeah, probably savages, dude. Like raping children and shit. Like, they didn't give a fuck back. They were just.
Maybe, but shit. I think it's probably comparable to like tribes today. Honestly, I wouldn't imagine that it's crazy different.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than, I don't think the genetics 37,000 years ago are that different. Although I guess to assume that it was like totally evil, I think it was just primitive. Like I don't know if we need to be like.
Yeah. I was thinking pre-Caligastia. I was thinking pre-Caligastia. My bad.
Like cannibalism. I think cannibalism can arrive in any primitive tribal cultures, but it's also not guaranteed in any primitive tribe. It's sort of based on different conditions. Like
we need to go fly around planets and study, see how many civilizations.
A study of cannibalism on primitive civilizations across the cosmos. Angelic report.
That'd be interesting.
I mean, there was even as soon as like World War I, like modern European settlements that had to resort to cannibalism when they would like bank, or like in Russia, they would bank everything on communism. The state wouldn't support them. All of a sudden, they have no food. So I mean, like when conditions are right, people resort to like an animalistic state. But yeah, you're right. I'm sure back then people probably had things figured out in a stable form of just like hunter-gatherers, maybe basic agriculture, but I don't know how much of that was lost from the Planetary Prince teachings and all that.
I mean, Van was, I guess the people that Van taught, he mostly tried to bring them all to the garden civilization, but he still was passing on knowledge to probably many civilizations that he could. So I'm sure there was other forms of civilization, but they were still primitive. Nothing was universal. There wasn't like as much trade and interrelate and cities between different tribes. It's kind of just all those different areas is how I imagine it.
Like pockets, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Adam and Eve are doing. They're trying to link it all together into a central city where they can teach people, they can go back out, they have resources, etc.
Kingdom building. Adam made a heroic and determined effort to establish a world government, but he met with stubborn resistance at every turn. Adam had already put in operation a system of group control throughout Eden and had federated all these companies into the Edenic League. Sorry, burp coming, been drinking Coke. Oh, disappeared on me. But
Do that.
I wonder where Eden is. You know how I say Jerusalem is in Orion? Where is Eden being Sagittarius? You know, I don't know. Just throwing some stuff out there. Where the hell is Eden?
I might
Or
have an answer
Edentia,
for
sorry.
you.
Edentia.
Oh, Urantia. Okay.
Is Edentia its own planet separate from Jerusalem? I thought that was
Yeah.
okay,
It's like a
separate
different
thing. Yeah.
location. And yeah.
Is it higher up or lower? Is that Satania? So Jerusalem is capital of Satania.
Yeah, Edentia is one level up.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's the next level up.
That's where all the systems after you go through the mansion worlds from in your system, then you go to
Yeah, I think the
Edentia,
systems go there.
capital of the local universe. Is it that far up?
No, then after that would be Salvington. That would be the capital of the local universe. So it's like Jerusalem, Edentia, Salvington.
Okay.
And then what, Uversa? Whatever.
Local, yeah,
We'll figure-
local
we'll
universe
break
to
it
super
down later.
universe.
Yeah, we're talking. If we sound like we're speaking freaking, what the fuck are these guys talking about? We're talking about different universe capitals. That's it. Just different capitals, like big cities, like New York, Hong Kong, China. There's different capitals in the universe. Like Orion's belt would be one capital. We're saying that'd be Jerusalem. We're trying to figure out where Edentia would be. Would that be like in the constellation?
And these are all
Whatever.
afterlife locations. We will, there's a system set up for all the souls to progress through from all the different planets, and that's what we're
Yep.
talking about.
All right, check this out. I don't have the answer to where Edentia is, but in terms of where Eden is, since we're talking about it, on the UB
We weren't
annotated.
talking about that. You're talking about it.
You said it. I wonder where Eden is, and then
Well,
you
he meant
corrected me.
Edentia.
But I
All
at
right,
least
let's go.
I at least have a rough possible answer for this. On the UB the News website.
Heck yeah! Shout out
This
to
guy's
Halbert.
done. Yeah. This guy's done a deep dive on it, and he postulates there's a landmass between Syria and Cyprus that's been submerged that looks like it was a mountain ridge, and that the headwaters kind of lead right to this area into the coast. So it looks like a river, like from the Tigris, Euphrates, or whatever, could have streamed off down this landmass back when it wasn't submerged. It kind of he goes into great detail about it, but it looks like it kind of lines up with the Urantia book's description of where the first garden was. In the 60s, there was I believe it was something like a Russian radar scan or something like that that kind of showed there was something right here. It's pretty interesting. Gary kind of shows it a view of it. You can kind of see where this landmass might have been. There would have been a ridge on the outside. This whole inner area would have been elevated. And then the Urantia book even goes on to talk about how this was eventually submerged. The Garden of Eden was submerged, lost underwater. So it's a possibility. I'll definitely recommend checking out that link. I can share it in the chat for anyone who wants to do a deep dive for more information.
Yeah, throw it in the chat.
Get Graham
Basil.
Put it in the
Hancock on
description.
this.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Get a Netflix special.
I'm sending him a text message right now. All right, send. Well, there you go, people. There you have it. Location of the first Garden of Eden. Because there's a second one too, but we'll get into that later. Where were we at?
I think we're on 7456.
But
Oh, actually 5. You didn't finish paragraph 5.
But serious trouble ensued when he went outside the garden and sought to apply these ideas to the outlying tribe. The moment Adam's associates began to work outside the garden, they met the direct and well-planned resistance of the Anunnaki, Caligastia and Dalagastia. So damn, the rebel Anunnaki were right outside the fence. The second you got outside the garden, they were there to fucking come at your neck, dude.
Yep.
The fallen, it's like celestial wars straight up on Earth. He was, the fallen prince had been deposed as world ruler. The fallen prince, that would be Anu. So the word Anunnaki, Anu means heavenly sky prince, Naki means heavenly staff or princely staff. So Anunnaki means the prince's staff of the sky prince Anu. The sky prince is Caligastia, and he had 100 staff members who were the Anunnaki. So the fallen prince, that's the fallen Anu. The fallen prince had been deposed as world ruler, but he had not been removed from the planet. He was still present on Earth and able, at least to some extent, to resist all of Adam's plans for the rehabilitation of human society. Adam tried to warn the races against Caligastia, but the task was made very difficult because his archenemy was invisible to the eyes of mortals. So I wonder how Caligastia ran that. Was there like a, did he just get like a mafia sect deep in the woods with like a military border? And like he was invisible, but like somehow he could make his presence known to like these tribal people. And they're like, oh my God, we found a God. And they were just like doing his bidding at all times. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how did that work?
I really do wonder.
Planting
Like,
fear in the shaman, the witch doctor kind of people,
yeah, exactly.
communicating with them somewhat in their altered states of consciousness to incite a negative opinion of the garden. He's letting them know the garden people are going to come. Don't listen to them. They'll lie.
They're going to steal your land. They're going to take your babies.
That probably would be the way that worked out. Like you had a shamanic ruler or something, and he would go off into his tent and commune with Caligastia or something like that. And
Yeah, it's
go
probably
out
like 12. He probably had contact with all the shaman leaders of the tribes and had them all come into a council like once a week or some shit and gave them orders and said, hey, if you listen to me, I'll make sure you guys get pigs, fruit, water. Like, okay. And if you don't listen to me, all right.
I mean, remember Caligastia, and for the viewers, Caligastia is an angelic being. That's why he's invisible to the eyes of mortals. However, Adam and Eve, they can see and communicate with Caligastia and other angelic beings. The staff of Anu, the Anunnaki, they were physical mortal beings, but they had forms that could last many, many years. Potentially immortal if they had stuck to the right plan, the divine plan. So, what was I getting here to? So, I just wanted to make that differential between the angelic. Oh, so Caligastia had basically declared himself the god of this world. And so, I think this is possibly where you get some mixture into obviously a lot of the false gods are being propagated by Caligastia himself or the rebel angels underneath of him. They're all interacting and influencing these cultures from their vantage point. And so this is just one example of Caligastia directly planning resistance against Adam and Eve's mission of going out to these cultures. The other thing that I thought was interesting is that Adam and Eve, like, they had to preach a doctrine of the devil. They were like, the devil's out there. It's funny that they had to try and explain that. And you wonder, because like even now we have this same mystery of like, the devil's doing this. This is because of the devil. It's like we still have this mystery because we can't see the invisible rebellious angels. And so we either overblame or we underblame, because we don't really know what's going on that other side. So you either blame, a lot of religious people, they either blame the devil for everything, and don't take enough personal responsibility for their own desires, kind of going being indulgent in just, doing the things that they want rather than the things that they should, that create a better culture and society. this is the mystery behind the devil, the ancient history, the untold history of the devil on Earth. It's quite interesting, and it begins to make sense when you read it from this book.
Hell yeah. The real Anunnaki story, baby. Anunnaki versus Adam and Eve. Fuck yeah. Sci-Fi Channel. 1 o'clock in the morning. Even among the Edenites, there were those confused minds that leaned toward the Caligastia teaching of unbridled personal liberty, and they caused Adam no end of trouble. Always were they upsetting the best laid plans for orderly progression and substantial development. He was finally compelled to withdraw his program for immediate socialization. He fell back on Van's method of organization, dividing the Edenites into companies of 100 with captains over each and with lieutenants in charge of groups of 10. Starting to get militaristic. He says like they gave up and they abandoned this Adamic way and they just reverted to Van's way of a military type setup organization, tens, hundreds, the lieutenant and a captain over each one. Wonder where we get this strict hierarchical society from, you know?
That's interesting.
Adam and Eve had come to institute representative government in the place of monarchical, but they found no government worthy of the name on the face of the whole earth.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's bad. So we were just straight up a bunch of savages. We didn't follow rules. Like you try to do a treaty, and then that night you get attacked by the same fools that signed the treaty, you know, and they'd come steal your shit.
Yeah.
For the time being, Adam abandoned all effort to establish representative government, and before the collapse of the Edenic regime, he succeeded in establishing almost 100 outlying trade and social centers where strong individuals ruled in his name. Damn, so that's how you gotta go mafia status. Fucking put capos around here and that ruled in Adam's name. Most of these centers had been organized aforetime by Van and Amadon. So this is what I'm interested in with the legacy expeditions. I would like to go see how many of these outposts we can find and see if there's any, you know, archaeological remains that can be recovered. If the CIA already hasn't got to it. The sending of ambassadors from one tribe to another dates from the times of Adam. This was a great forward step in the evolution of governance. Wow.
Nice. Yeah, legacy expedition. We'll have to go out to the Middle East, start scurrying around. We'll probably have to disguise ourselves as spooks, wear some sunglasses and business suits or something, you know, and earpieces. So someone will
They
see
leave
us and
you
they're like,
alone.
oh, they're CIA. Don't mess with them.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even look at them. Or else we'll get drone striked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of trippy. That's cool. I want to go visit all those sites. Like I said, go see if we can dig up anything cool. It's really
I
cool.
don't know.
It's not cool, but
I feel like I feel like we wouldn't find anything cool. It doesn't sound very cool. Sounds like they were having a really hard time of doing anything cool.
really hard.
Like we dig it up, and like
About the rocks.
we didn't even. What do we find? Pottery. They're like,
Exactly.
it's like they
Yeah,
try to build a
exactly.
pottery factory, and all the workers quit because they can't. There's not
Failed.
enough order.
True that. You're right. You might not find shit. You know, just one tablet saying Adam was here, or like some graffiti. Van and Amadon were here. That'd be sick. But it does suck that it says that they kept trying and that apparently Caligastia won. He was being so rambunctious right outside the gates that Adam and Eve were like, we're giving up on representative government. We're going to stop. We're just going to try to strong arm it, you know? And it seems like we're still suffering from the repercussions of that.
I mean, it's what people praise America for our like Republican democracy when this was trying to be implemented 37,000 years ago, but the devil or the rebellious angels who wanted to do their own thing, they were actively working against this sort of unified spiritual culture.
Yeah.
It's weird. And I just remembered I do want to address a point from earlier in the paper. I wanted to say something and I forgot about it. It was at the end of the very first part that you started reading. And it was talking about like there's some insight onto this and I want to apply this to the legacy. I mean, it's already applied in it, but when we get our campus and we start getting a lot of people in, we have a little barracks and we're creating super soldiers, generating cosmic citizens. It gives you a little bit of insight on what you can do to conduct yourself in a trisophic way to ensure that you hit your potential. It says the forenoon was developed to physical improvement. The noontime was to spiritual worship, and the
Oh,
afternoon was mind culture, while the evening was spent in social rejoicing. So,
dude,
kicking
you're
it,
right.
kicking it with the homies.
Perfect
That that's
Sunday.
that's a trisophic day every single day, man. Every single day we should do that. Like mind, body, spirit every single day. You wake up, you hit it with the physical. Noontime, go into the spiritual. Afternoon, do some mind stuff, create some anti-grav and shit like that. And then go drink beers with the homies. Do that every single day, bro. Your civilization would be gnarly. You guys would just be killers. Like,
Oh yeah.
oh, sorry, we don't know scarcity. We don't know poverty. All we know is who
Manifestation.
who can manifest the next level of reality.
Yeah.
Tay Chilla's up. Tay Chilla's up to bat.
The home life of Adam and Eve. Here we go. The Adamic family
I hope they
grounds.
keep it G. Sorry.
The Adamic family grounds embraced a little over 5 square miles. Immediately surrounding this home site, provision had been made for the care of more than 300,000 of the pure line offspring. Whoa. But only the first unit of the projected buildings was ever constructed. Before the size of the Adamic family outgrew these early provisions, the whole Edenic plan had been disrupted and the garden vacated.
Yeah, I just realized how much that is. 300,000? They're trying to make like housing for that? Wow.
But remember,
Wow.
their mandate was 500,000 pure line descendants before the Adamic people would then go and intermate with the other tribes.
Yep.
So that's in a previous paper that talks about sort of the premise of the Adam and Eve missions and some of their agreements that they're supposed to follow. So yeah, they were already planning for their offspring and where they would live in this kind of garden area. However, what we're going to get into later, they had to vacate the garden because of the fall of Adam and Eve. And that's a really interesting unfolding as well, since, we have a version of that also in the Bible. And am I good to continue reading? Anyone?
Yeah.
Cool. I was going to say, we're going to get into the actual genealogy of Adam and Eve. The Bible has its own version, but we know that it's not listing all of their kids, obviously. And so now we're going to get into here. So Adamson was the firstborn of the violet race of Urantia, being followed by his sister and Eve's son, the second son of Adam and Eve. Oh, interesting.
It's funny that they don't give the daughter's name.
Well,
they say his sister.
Adamson was the firstborn, followed by his sister. Oh, his sister and Eve's son. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I wonder why. I wonder if she was like
that's
a big
weird.
name. Do we know her name? Yeah.
Is that the Lilith story or something? People mix that up. People think that Adam had like a...
What if it was?
Maybe.
And then Caligastia started the Lilith story to scare the surrounding tribes.
Yeah.
That's why they won't mention her name. Wow.
That is a weird thing. Followed by his sister and Eve's son. Why would they skip over?
Yeah,
they don't
only
name the
males.
sister. Is it because the sister like joined the rebellion and it also went really bad for?
That also could be
for
it
her
too.
in
You're
line?
right? Did she? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
interesting.
So that's already throwing the genealogy out of whack because everybody thinks Cain and Abel were the first two born from Adam and Eve.
Well,
but
they don't think that because the way that they the way they get around Cain
you're
going
doing
to
that,
Nod.
You're doing that.
No, I'm pointing out the Christian perspective. They say, okay, if Cain went to the land of Nod to get a wife, then Adam and Eve must have had other kids, and who knows how much time went by. I mean, technically that is plausible, but it is also a sort of a loophole to try and explain away the idea that maybe there was other humans other than Adam and Eve. But that's why all these possibilities should be on the table for you, for the viewer that has a Christian background. These are not the answers that they have in your current theology are not expansive. They're not exact. So this story is presenting a sort of alternate explanation. If you think it disagrees, think again, because your current idea does not agree with itself. Even the theologians argue about the different possibilities. So we're just unfolding
Yeah.
the most sensible possibility is truly the way I see this story.
Yeah, good point. Good point bringing that up. Exactly. So that for the viewers, because obviously I'm sure everybody's heard of that reasoning why Cain went out and got a wife, and that a lot of people, I've heard that a lot in my journey, why people had to justify that story. But like you said, way to put some light on the top.
Yeah, and I don't know. There could be. This doesn't seem entirely correct, but like, so they name Adam's son and Eve's son, which Eve's son is a dude, is the second son of Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
It's either you could. It is a little weird. Like, well, why wouldn't they name the first daughter? Either
Eve
the
daughter?
legacy of the first daughter wasn't great, and that's why they don't give the name, or I mean, it doesn't seem correct, but the first woman
Maybe it was
kid
Adam
didn't
daughter,
get named. I don't know. Adam daughter. Yeah. Adam's son, Adam daughter, Eve daughter.
And then Eve daughter. Yeah, like I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll continue reading. So Eve was the mother of 5 children before the Melchizedeks left, 3 sons and 2 daughters. The next were twins. She bore 63 children, 32 daughters, and 31 sons before the default. The default is the fall of Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve left the garden, their family consisted of 4 generations, numbering 1,647 pure line descendants.
Wow.
They had 42 children after leaving the garden, besides the 2 offspring of joint parentage with the mortal stock of earth. And this does not include the Adamic parentage to the Nodite and evolutionary races.
Wait, what? And this does not include the Adamic. Should I break that down for a second? I need to pee.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's something we'll get into later in this, with Eve having descendants with the Nodite race. I think that's what this is saying. It's
Kano.
not included in that count.
And then
Yeah.
Adam had some kids with another woman of the other population as well. So, yeah, really interesting. I mean, another thing about that story with how the Christians do their genealogy is like I guess you can kind of calculate like, okay, how many years have gone by? How many kids would Adam and Eve had to have had, based on the lifespan that's given, in the biblical text versus, if you're taking this story, that would actually be interesting as well. I think we could calculate how long it took them to have these kids, because all we need is the date of arrival, the date when Adam and Eve had to leave the garden, and I feel like that that information might be given, and so we could take those 2 dates and figure out how fast Adam and Eve were able to have their children. I don't know, Deadrick, do you remember? Does it say anything about how fast Eve was? It a 9-month schedule like humans, or was it different? Do you know?
I would imagine.
I think they imply that they don't do a full 9-month cycle. I think it's a little bit quicker, but not too much quicker. Somebody else actually has done what you're talking about. It's on one of those Urantia book websites, and they've figured out the exact dates and shit. But something to keep in the back of your mind is that they were only on planet for like 109, 111 years or something like that. So they did all this in only 100 years.
Wow.
So they were smashing. Eve was cranking them out.
1,647 kids. Can you imagine giving birth to that many children?
Yeah, in like 100 years. Did you guys figure out what they were talking about in the very end? It did not include Adamic parentage.
Yeah, because Eve had kids with Cano. Right? I think it'd be, Eve had kids with Cano, and or sorry, maybe that's not the right person, but Eve had some kids with one of the persons. Yeah, Cano, and then Adam. So that's what they're saying. This does not include the Adamic parentage to the Nodite and evolutionary races.
So are they implying that other Adam and Eves had sex with Nodites in evolutionary races?
What do you mean other Adam and Eves? On other planets?
Like other Adamites.
Oh. So 42 children after leaving the garden.
Yeah, because like what they say right there? It says they
What
had
they're
42 children after leaving the garden, besides the two offspring of joint pairage with immortal stock. So they're highlighting the two Cain and Abel because we knew of that,
Mhm.
right? So we already know that they highlight just those two separately, and then they go, but this does not include the Adamic parentage to Nodite and evolutionary races. Like what do you? Where does that come in?
Oh, so yeah, so it's almost suggesting that some of the
There's
Adams
more
had kids with the Nodites
with Nodites and
and
evolutionary races.
evolutionary
Yeah,
races. Okay.
but those would not be considered pure line, but they would
Hmm.
be damn near at Adamic, half Adamic, 50% Adamic.
Yeah.
That's trippy.
And I guess they're hinting. I guess I wonder if that happened after the fall, where since Adam and Eve had some kids, they directed their kids to integrate faster with the other pop.
Yeah.
Well, I think it does say that because
Fuck it. I think it
knew
says that, right?
they messed up the mission, so they wanted to spread the Adamic
fuck 'em.
seed and genetics sort of as much as they could. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what that would be talking about. All right, continuing on. The Adamic children did not take milk from animals when they ceased to nurse the mother's breast at 1 year of age. Eve had access to the milk of a great variety of nuts and to the juices of many fruits, and knowing full well the chemistry and energy of these foods, she suitably combined them for the nourishment of her children until the appearance of teeth.
An almond milk.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's really fast. 1 year. Like to stop breastfeeding at 1 year. That's a lot fast. Most moms, I think it's like 2 years.
Yeah.
Them Adam babies grow fast.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It's funny how that kind of ties into the idea of, I think the Seventh-day Adventists had this idea that Adam and Eve originated veganism or something like that. I mean, they're making
That's
almond milk back then, so
Mm.
it kind of lines up there.
Well, yeah, they didn't eat. I don't think Adam and Eve ate meat either. I think it does say that. So yeah, you could
It's
say that.
interesting how they got that. How did they figure that out without reading the Urantia book?
Well, they had
Oh.
like a prophet that they considered was bringing through some new revelation. I forget the. I think it was
Sign
a
me up,
woman
dog.
actually.
I'm Seventh-day Adventist now.
Mary Baker Eddy. That might be the Seventh-day Adventism prophetess. So, all right. While cooking was universally employed outside of the immediate Adamic sector of Eden, there was no cooking in Adam's household. They found their foods, fruits, nuts, and cereals readily prepared as they ripened. They ate once a day shortly after noontime. Adam and Eve also imbibed light and energy direct from certain space emanations in conjunction with the ministry of the tree of life.
I like how they use
call
the
it?
word imbibed.
Yeah.
Like it's
By
Aren't there's humans that claim that they can survive just off the sun? There's been some funny stories about that.
yeah. It doesn't end well.
Yeah. Some of the tests under scientific rigor did not end well.
No. Yeah. That's
Severe
trippy. So
sunburn
it kind of sucks
ensued.
though. Like no cooking, man. What? It's a whack, bro. Even if it's veggies, man, saute them bitches. Put some salt and pepper. Like that's why white people don't use. Oh, it makes sense. White people's food is bland. They don't use seasonings enough. But I mean, it's kind of cool. Only once a day though. I don't know if I'd make it. Give me a
I don't
couple
think you would
fruits
be
and nuts
expected to
once a
make
day.
it. The genetics is
No.
way different. Remember, Adam and
Yeah,
Eve are
they are
like
way different,
celestial
obviously.
humans. Their bodies were designed and assembled to be like the paradise man, the ultimate form, and they were they were going to try and give us a certain percentage of that upgrade, but it failed.
I wonder if there is at least one Adamite who was like,
I'm gonna cook
smelt
it.
the tribes cooking on the outside, and they're like, you know
Tried it.
what? I'm going all in, and it just becomes like a fucking meat eater. Like I'm here to experience.
Yeah.
I'll share my screen just to show. I kind of showed this last time, but there are across many different ancient cultures all over the Middle East and North Africa and all over the place that had depictions of two beings picking from a tree, like the tree of life. Mostly Mesopotamia, all these different
Wow.
cultures. But I thought that was really interesting. It's always like two beings plucking off.
Yo, what if that's
Tree of Life, and
legit
you got, like-
how the tree of life
What-
looked?
I don't know. It's
It
pretty
could be,
wild
yeah.
looking. You got like a
Right,
sun
you're
symbol
right.
above it. So is that like, they're holding rays
Cosmos.
coming up from the sun symbols that imbibing solar
Oh,
radiation
the
or
lights,
whatever.
the radiation. Yeah, the
Yeah, the
solar
Fandor
radiation
kind of
streams.
bird people next to him.
Yeah, that's really weird.
And could
Yeah.
that represent the two factions of the Anunnaki? You know, they're both fighting over
Ooh.
the tree of life.
Ooh, I wonder. Yeah,
And
is
Van
that what
versus
these are?
Nod. Yeah, Van
Then
versus
here
Nod.
they got angel wings. It's another one.
Yeah, the fruit, it looks
Palace
kind
of
of
Nimrod.
similar. Look at the leaves on that.
These guys were in
It's a
fish
Interesting.
weird
suits.
one where they're wearing fish suits.
Fish people.
They're holding the handbags.
The
Some
handbag.
kind of
Yeah, they always
symbolism.
got the handbags. Yeah.
Maybe that's where they
Yeah.
put the fruit in, the tree of
Maybe,
life, and
yeah.
they just carried it
Oh,
around and snacked on it.
maybe. This is two animals. Kind of unusual.
That's
It shows how
Caligastia's version.
this was in Marlik, Iran, 1000 BC. So it shows how many years, thousands of years in the future, people are still depicting this in different ways, and it shows how the story probably changed over time. And there's a person inside of that sun symbol.
As there should be.
That's just
Maybe that's where the menorah comes from.
I could
Wow.
see that. Yeah.
Putting in some work, pulling
Almost
up
looks
all
like
these all these photos.
Oh yeah, and I'm only
Yeah,
scratching the
it's been a
surface.
lot.
There are hundreds of these. I only got a
Those
handful
homies
here.
are in a UFO, dude.
Yeah, that looks like a UAP up there, doesn't it? Another one. Yes, pretty
I
interesting.
mean, for it to be depicted that much, it had to
and
have
it
been
looks the
something
same.
like
I mean, I don't know if maybe
gnarly.
these are all from one culture, but like, I feel like that many of with this design, I feel like this is something about like at least the way the fruit and the leaves look like, they all seem kind of consistent with this. It looks like a clammy kind of shell, but I'm sure it's floral. But yeah, I mean, no, it does kind of look majestic, like a celestial. There's like a lot of like beauty, even the way the branches go. I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
weird how
have
they're
you ever been in those trees? Like they form like a perfect, almost like halo of green on the outside, but once you break that layer, it's just like the branches. You know, that's
yeah.
what it kind of looks like. It has like that hollow layer of branches,
yeah.
and then
Okay.
the outside it's really dense.
Pretty interesting. It's weird how the branches intersect on these nodes, almost like a tree of life looking symbol. You know, like the Kabbalah looking thing, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And they say it was they call it a shrub of Edentia.
Oh
in the
yeah,
Urantia
shrub. That does kind of look like a shrub.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like person sized or kind of small.
Get
It
me
almost
a
looks like a torch
shrubbery.
inside of it.
All
That's
right,
crazy.
we ready to continue reading?
Yeah.
Ready.
All right. The bodies of Adam and Eve gave forth a shimmer of light, but they always wore clothing in conformity with the custom of their associates. Though wearing very little during the day, at eventide they donned night wraps. The origin of the traditional halo encircling the heads of supposed pious and holy men dates back to the days of Adam and Eve, since the light emanations of their bodies were so largely obscured by clothing. Only the radiating glow from their heads was discernible. The descendants of Adamson always thus portrayed their concept of individuals believed to be extraordinary in spiritual development.
That's interesting.
Everybody knows the depiction right now. I just shared my screen real quick. It's I just searched Saint Halo.
I'm gonna share my screen next.
There you go. Got the Saint Halo. You already shared. Oh yeah. But you see like the depictions and all like the medieval paintings, those halos. Apparently that comes from Adam and Eve actually radiated light. And when they put on their robes, the robes would enshroud their bodies so you could only see the light coming from their head. And you can actually see it at like, in dark hours and stuff. So people started drawing that halo around people.
Just another example of how profoundly we were influenced by this external space human.
Yep.
Yeah.
Space human. Hell yeah.
Cool. How's this for space humans? Adam and Eve could communicate with each other and their immediate children over a distance of about 50 miles. This thought exchange was effected by means of the delicate gas chambers located in close proximity to their brain structures. By this mechanism, they could send and receive thought oscillations. But this power was instantly suspended upon the mind's surrender to the discord and disruption of evil. Telepathy.
Straight up telepathy confirmed. We always pull this quote when we talk about it in our other videos. Go watch our Keys of Enoch videos. We have a Psionics 101, how to communicate with UAP, how to communicate with celestial intelligences, and we talk about this. You have the ability to send and receive thought forms. I don't want to get into the actual mechanics and the metaphysics behind it right now because we do that in every other episode. But it's pretty cool that we had that. They can do it up to 50 miles, right? Yeah, about 50 miles. So like when you guys think of somebody, then you get a text message from them, or you think of somebody and they call you, you know? It could be you could be using that mechanism, but that mechanism is atrophied. Just like if you don't lift weights forever, if you just stick yourself in a closet for 20 years and come out, you're going to be looking like scrawny, decrepit. You're not going to be able to lift yourself. Same thing with not understanding your mind, body, spirit, or your underlying telepathic capabilities, latent spiritual capabilities. That's what everybody does that. You think of somebody and they text you. You think of somebody and they call you. But Adam and Eve could do it consciously. Instead of just randomly thinking of them and they call you, you would send them a thought form and they would see the thought form in 3D holographic, as a 3D holographic image in their mind. So it's pretty cool.
I'll show one more thing here. There are circumventricular organs. There are certain little areas of the brain that are kind of speculated to be vestigial because there's no clear explanation of how they function or what they do. So it's possible in the Adamic morphology, they actually had this little pressure chamber in their brain that could oscillate and they could detect stuff. And it's just over time kind of become vestigial because you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's pretty fresh. Try it. You can work those same muscles by visualization techniques and meditation, such as like Merkaba meditation. And then you also have to it's hard to activate any of these powers just by sitting there and thinking about it. We advocate on this channel to get off your ass and actually go experience reality, because reality itself, when you experience new situations, oh, I messed up that one time, but this time I'm going to do it different. Oh, I messed up that one joke on stage, but next time I'm going to say the joke different. Oh, that camera angle is a little bit off. Next time I'm going to make the camera angle a little bit more epic. Those lessons can only be learned by throwing yourself an experience, and that experience becomes the fuel for these mechanisms. You can't just sit there and, like the law of attraction, just manifestation. No, you have to actually get off your butt and do it too. Action is part of the circuit. So if you want to actually unlock these type of communication methods, you think the universe is just going to gift you telepathy because you thought about it for a long time? Fuck no. It's going to gift you telepathy because you're out here literally changing the face of planet Earth. And then they'll be like, okay, let's let them start tasting how to transfer thought forms. It's not going to give it to you because you're undeserved of it, because I think nice. No, you got to get up and do it. So just a little bit of background. Maybe you can unlock this, but in order to unlock this, you're going to have to actually get the boots a little dirty. So
Right on.
And it also says that the power was instantly suspended upon the mind's surrender to discord and the disruption of evil. So if if you're holding these concepts of just like Ferraris, cars, clothes, fucking niggas' thoughts, I don't care about anybody. I'm gonna try to play the next guy again. I'm gonna try to fuck him over, make a buck on him. I'm gonna oversell this to this fool because he's a fool and a sucker, and I'm better because I can manipulate other people. If those are your thought forms, yeah, if the Machiavellian type of thinking, the dark triad, if you're subscribing to that kind of thinking because you think that it's a dog eat dog world and I'm just going to use and manipulate everybody so I can get my position within the hierarchy, you're never going to be able to access these types of mechanisms such as telepathy. I mean, it just says it right there. That power gets instantly severed once you start harboring distorted thought forms because they're no longer in resonance with the prime frequency of the universe. So
yeah,
something to be
that last
mindful.
sentence is actually kind of interesting because it makes you question what exactly stopped their ability to use telepathy, because it doesn't say that it was taken from them because it depended on a universe circuit that was taken away. I mean, the universe circuits were already in quarantine, the Earth. So they're using their own ability, and it mentions that it was partly a biological ability involving these gas chambers. Now, what I actually, my first thought when I read, it was suspended upon the mind's surrender to the discord and disruption of evil. What I think is that part of telepathy, it almost like requires a sympathetic resonance from my mind to your mind, and evil is literally the opposite of anything true in reality. You're making things up that don't exist in reality. They're not real concepts. They have no eternal value, and so that creates such a dissonance in thought forms that it's almost like you can't give somebody a thought form that doesn't actually exist, where it's not based on a true universal value. And that's part
Oh,
of that's sort of a philosophical way to
Mm-hmm.
think about it. Like, if you're involved, like being so involved in evil and relativism, it's like it disrupts the natural resonance that we have, because our minds do come from the same source. However, our ideas are not always in alignment from that same source, because we've been so sort of modified or so put down by the prison planet, Earth. All the false ideas that have arisen here, they take up so much of our mind space that we never get in resonance with each other enough to even start to feel that natural telepathy, and expand it.
Yeah.
So that could be another part of it.
That's a really good way to put it. You put some images in my mind, and that makes sense a lot. Like, it has to do with the way your mind is in relationship to other minds. Because if you guys are both harboring different distortions, then it's impossible to make that communication, to establish that handshake in the network. Um, but people kind of normally do it when you get near each other and you're vibing, or you're like, we do it all the
yeah.
time when we make stupid small jokes, like we riff off each other, and we can kind of see like the next image that's coming up in the procession of thought forms, and we all kind of contribute to it. And we can start to think what each other is thinking. That's a form of it, but we're doing it just because we're like, we're doing it around a distorted concept, but we're having fun with it. If we were all like perfectly in that mind, body, spirit, like peak performance from the second we wake up, we know what we're doing, we're in the kingdom, it would be easier to establish communication telepathically. We would know what each other is thinking because we're already focused on that. As opposed to when I wake up, I'm thinking of, the shit I like, Lil Wayne, rap, whatever, and you like the shit you like. And all those differentiations kind of, they add a
Mm.
layer of
Of
feedback or
interference.
static for interference for the data to transfer through. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a good point. And then looking at these studies of the professional remote viewers, people who've like remote viewed for the military and have developed like a really strict program they follow. It's always described that people who are good at it are kind of pure of heart. They got
Mhm.
good intentions. They're kind of simple, um, and open hearts and all that. And so, it makes sense. Only some people can do it because a lot of us are stuck in the Maya, we're stuck in that illusion, that world of illusion. Probably takes a lot of
Shout out to
training to get
Maya.
out of
Shout out to Maya though. You know,
that.
Be Maya. Okay.
B Maya. Shout out to B Maya.
Mesa Verde.
I
Yeah.
need we need to check the
Yeah,
Metaverde. We need
yeah.
to drop some Metaverde shit. We got a
True,
lot
true.
more videos coming at you guys. We got a vault full of stuff, and we're just busy, but we got some content coming to you. And by the way, I dropped a music video. If you didn't notice, I don't know why I didn't say it in the beginning. I dropped a music video. It's on the channel. Go check it out. Tear My Heart Up. Magma Sloth, Tyler helped me make it. He was there. We shot it on a DJI Ronin 4D 6K, high quality cinema. I'd like your guys' feedback. It's like kind of a spiritual rap. It's not fully about spirituality, but I try to tie in spiritual concepts in a hip hop way. I think this will be the future of rap. I call it Star Hop. So go check it out. It's the latest video that just dropped. Hit that like button and leave a comment. Give me some feedback if you like it, if you hate it, whatever. Just check it out. We like to hit our potentials by expressing ourselves creatively, and that's one of the modes that I do. I'm not a rapper. I'm a son of God. I'm a human being. I'm Deadrick Baker, and I rap. You know, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not a director or cinematographer. I'm Deadrick Baker, and I do cinema and I make film. I don't identify with these little labels. These are just ways I can express myself. So don't look at me and be like, "Oh, he's a rapper," and that's it. He's a rapper. No. Oh, he's a filmmaker. He's a cinematographer, and put me in that little box. No. All those little boxes fall off of the back of my personality as it's sprinting through time and space. So you're not going to be able to put me in any of those. But Yeah, go check out that music video. Again, thanks for joining. Hit that subscribe button if you like what we are talking about so that you stay up to date with all the Planetary Headquarters broadcasts. And hit that like button, baby. Also, I do want to say, before we move on, we got that drip, got that swag. We selling shirts, baby. I'm not rocking it right now. I was about to say I'm rocking it right now. I actually wore this for the Adam and Eve paper. It's a beautiful female and male skeleton together. We don't make this. I bought this, but we have shirts. You can now support the cause. The link is in the description. They're only $30. We're only making a $9 profit. It costs us $21 to actually make the shirts, but you can go check them out. You can support the cause because we're trying to get mind, body, spirit buildings in every city. And we're trying to get a mind, body, spirit app in everybody's phones so that you can stay up to date in real time on your mind, body, spirit progress and link up with others in your area so that you guys can grow together mentally, physically, and spiritually. It's going to take over social media. It's going to be sick, but you can support it by buying a shirt. So go check out the link. It is in the description. They look pretty sick. It's got Legacy blasted across the chest, got the logo on the chest. We also have different iterations where the Legacy's on the back, and we got the logo on the front. Go check them out. We also got some UFO shirts. Just check out the site. Some mugs. We're gonna have some lanyards coming soon. So I'm sure Tate Trilla got it on the screen right now. Go check it out. Helps us out. You can be a part of the mission. We are in this together. We will be victorious. And I know you might be busy. You can't just jump out the airplane right now and land in the LZ. We still need support groups at home. You got a family and stuff. Buy that shirt. It goes a long way and it'll help us get to that final mission and outcome. If you really want to join the cause, hit us up, TheLegacyFHP@gmail.com. We are rolling out this mind, body, spirit routine really soon. So be on the lookout so you can actually, before the app comes out, you will be able to track your progress directly through us. So keep it locked. And the quicker you buy a shirt, the quicker you will help us externalize that application for everybody on Earth. So that's enough of me plugging everything. We can get back into the reading. Do you guys want to say anything?
No, I'm
right
good.
back into it.
Yeah. The Adamic children attended their own schools until they were 16, the younger being taught by the elder. The little folks changed activities every 30 minutes, the older every hour, and it was certainly a new sight on Urantia to observe these children of Adam and Eve at play, joyous and exhilarating activity just for the sheer fun of it. The play and humor of the present-day races are largely derived from the Adamic stock. The Adamites all had a great appreciation of music as well as a keen sense of humor. I love that. I just
awesome.
got to throw back to, I guess, middle school and high school classes every hour. It wasn't always as joyful and as fun as this sounds, but
Yeah,
it's funny that we still have this concept was originated with Adam and Eve.
pretty cool.
That's true. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
The
That would be
average,
a lot of work though, like working with 3 and 4-year-olds and making them do something new every 30 minutes. Like
Yeah.
you'd be tired by the end of the day.
Now they had a routine worked out.
Yeah.
but the younger being taught by the elder, that's interesting. It's kind of like an apprentice thing. It also
Yeah,
fits
I
the
think we lack
spiritual
that so
principle
much.
of like teaching is learning. You haven't
Yeah.
learned unless you can teach it. That kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's like part of
You
your
know-
in
learning
the
is
mansion
teaching it
worlds,
to
right?
someone else.
Yeah,
I
in the
under-
mansion world, that's part of your program, right? The second you learn
Yeah.
something, the next phase is to teach it to the people coming in the next class. So,
Yeah, I understand early schoolhouses like late 1800s, early 1900s, before it became more like a factory kind of structure where the bell rings and
yeah,
all that.
Montessori, D3. My kid, he goes to a Montessori,
Oh.
and it's based off where the older kids teach the younger kids. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's a good format. I would like for schools to get back to that because it puts more responsibility on kids when you have younger kids that you're conveying everything you learn, so it sets it in your mind more. Because when you teach it, it really calls on your strengths. Like, oh, do I really know this? And you kind of learn along with the teaching process. As you teach something, you learn a lot in the process. But yeah, it's a good format to follow. We got a lot we can learn from Adam and Eve.
Magma, your
Yeah, and if
audio
you
is
think
being
about that,
is kind of the same issue we had last time. I don't know if you can do anything about that though.
I'm hearing
Get
room
closer
noise.
to my mic,
bro.
I guess.
Well, I heard
But,
room noise and also that kind of like that cutting out, that glitchiness. So
Damn it, what the fuck was I gonna say? I totally forgot. Forgot what you last said. It'll come back to me.
Montessori schools.
Uh, older
Oh, I'm
students
saying
teaching.
like that. Yeah, that really is the cause for a lot of social anxiety and the lack of interpersonal relationship skills that people have in today. Because when you raise
Yeah.
up in our school system, you're only a student forever. You're drilled into being a student. You're never put in a position where you have to teach it. And teaching it to groups is part of socialization, being able to learn how to talk to people, learning how to talk to groups. If you're doing that constantly from when you're young, by the time you get to 14, 15, 16, it ain't going to be a big deal to talk to groups, to interact with people, to work with people. But we don't do that nowadays. It's like only student, student, student. And that's why everybody's like so shy and so meek. And like they're just like, the second the authority speaks, they're like, okay, okay, okay. We have to do okay, okay, okay. You know,
Yep.
it's creating a weird type of personality. It's like an unsociable person. I believe if we instilled when you learn something, then you have to teach it to the rest of the people, it would kind of take away that social anxiety. It would force you to be socialized. Whatever.
The average age of betrothal was 18, and these youths then entered upon a 2 year course of instruction in preparation for the assumption of marital responsibilities. At 20, they were eligible for marriage, and after marriage, they began their life work or entered upon special preparation therefor. The practice of some subsequent nations of permitting the royal families, supposedly descended from the gods, to marry brother to sister dates from the traditions of the Adamic offspring, mating, as they must needs, with one another. The marriage ceremonies of the first and second generations of the garden were always performed by Adam and Eve.
Trippy.
All
I
right.
mean, it's about right for the ages, for our ages, 18, 20. That's cool. But I like how they actually instill like
2
classes
years
on how to,
preparation, yeah.
preparation
That's
for that.
wild.
That would help us a
Good
lot.
idea. Yeah.
Oh,
All right. I'll take on Life in the Garden, section 7.
hit it up.
The children of Adam, except for 4 years' attendance at the Western schools, lived and worked in the East of Eden. They were trained intellectually until they were 16 in accordance with the methods of Jerusalem schools. From 16 to 20, they were taught in the Urantia schools at the other end of the garden, serving there also as teachers in the lower grades. The entire purpose of the Western school system of the garden was socialization. Reaching back to what Deadrick was talking about. The forenoon periods of recess were devoted to practical horticulture and agriculture, the afternoon periods to competitive play. The evenings were employed in social intercourse and the cultivation of personal friendships. Religious and sexual training were regarded as the province of the home, the duty of the parents. The teaching in these schools included instruction regarding 1. Health and the care of the body, 2. The golden rule, the standard of social intercourse, 3. The relation of individual rights to group rights and community obligations, 4. History and culture of the various earth races, 5. Methods of advancing and improving world trade, 6. Coordination of conflicting duties and emotions. 7. The cultivation of play, humor, and competitive substitutes for physical fighting. That's
Magna.
interesting. Yes.
Go ahead and finish what you're saying, but then I think we want to try. I don't know if you can plug your mic into another USB port, doing something, because it's
I could try
the
that.
audio is like really. I don't know if you heard from the last episode how it sounds like, but if we read through the whole paper, a lot of this section is gonna be hard to kind of listen to. Even just like getting a test, like hearing your other microphone, like if we'll know if it's the internet, if it's the same on both microphones. But if it's something with how the mic is communicating with your computer, then we'd know if you switch mic
Yeah.
source. So I guess you switch the USB port right now.
Yeah. So let's see how
Yeah,
this
keep
is.
going and
Hopefully this is better. It's interesting uh these 7 teaching instructions on these 7 themes kind of loosely correlate with the 7 chakras. The first one is health and care of the body. The second one, the golden rule, standard of social intercourse, kind of governs like uh, how you would feel. And then the third one, the relation of individual rights, group rights, and community obligations, kind of fits with the solar plexus being kind of blocked by shame, but uh, exemplified by willpower and courage. And interaction with others and all that. I mean, it all kind of loosely correlates. I think it's interesting having this sevenfold pattern take on different flavors throughout the book. Um, how's that sound, Taylor? Is that a little better?
I still it didn't it, it's I still hear it. So try switching to another microphone just so we can get another opinion. It could even be that headset one. I don't know if that one works.
Let's see here. I'll have to change to a different headset to do that.
No worries. Thanks everyone watching for the little bit of downtime troubleshooting. We just want to try and get the highest quality production for you. There's always something when you're doing stuff live.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
All right. We'll try this. And if that's no better, I'll just have to figure something out later.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Um,
I already hear it kind of being the same.
okay.
The only other thing I see here, and maybe you can see if this is in your Discord settings. Apparently, you can go to voice and video, audio subsystem, and then there's like a setting called Legacy, where it's like an older method of connecting to
Ooh.
audio. And it does say that you'll probably have to restart Discord, but if that's in your settings, I would say give that a try. I'm looking. I have
He's
some
already
other
out.
troubleshooting, so yeah, I think he found the setting. It sounds like then. So there's another thing here. Let's see, server region settings.
All right. How about that?
Keep
Legacy
talking.
audio.
It sounds a little different. Is that your headset though?
He changed to his
Yeah,
headset.
this is my headset.
You,
All right.
you got to talk a little bit longer. You could try your other microphone now because we know it's not the microphone.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and continue reading from here, and I don't have that much left to read, and I can pass it on to y'all, and I'll figure this out later. Um, the laws of the garden were based on the older codes of Dalmatia and were promulgated under 7 heads. 1. The laws of health and sanitation. 2. The social regulations of the garden. 3. The code of trade and commerce. 4. The laws of fair play and competition. 5. The laws of home life. 6. The civil codes of the Golden Rule. 7. The 7 commands of supreme moral rule. The moral law of Eden was little different from the 7 commandments of Dalmatia, but the Adamites taught many additional reasons for these commands. For instance, regarding the injunction against murder, the indwelling of the thought adjuster was presented as an additional reason for not destroying human life. They taught that whoso sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. The public worship hour of Eden was noon. Sunset was the hour of family worship. Adam did his best to discourage the use of set prayers, teaching that effective prayer must be wholly individual, that it must be the desire of the soul. But the Edenites continued to use the prayers and forms handed down from the times of Dalmatia. Adam also endeavored to substitute the offerings of the fruit of the land for the blood sacrifices in the religious ceremonies, but had made little progress before the disruption of the garden. Adam endeavored to teach the races sex equality. The way Eve worked by the side of her husband made a profound impression upon all dwellers in the garden. Adam definitely taught them that the woman, equally with the man, contributes those life factors which unite to form a new being. Theretofore, mankind had presumed that all procreation resided in the loins of the father. They had looked upon the mother as being merely a provision for nurturing the unborn and nursing the newborn. Adam taught his contemporaries all they could comprehend, but that was not very much, comparatively speaking. Nevertheless, the more intelligent of the races of Earth looked forward eagerly to the time when they would be permitted to intermarry with the superior children of the violet race. And what a different world Urantia would have become if this great plan of uplifting the races had been carried out. Even as it was, tremendous gains resulted from the small amount of the blood of this imported race, which the evolutionary peoples incidentally secured. And thus did Adam work for the welfare and uplift of the world of his sojourn. But it was a difficult task to lead these mixed and mongrel peoples in the better way.
Nice. Audio sounds good, so you can feel free to switch to your other mic and probably turn your video back on because I don't think it's an internet thing. It was an
Okay.
audio communication with Discord and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I had shut off my video thinking maybe it was like a bit rate kind of thing, like there's too much uploading back and forth because I know it's like high quality video, but we'll see. Maybe that legacy thing worked.
Makes sense. It's called The Legacy.
Legacy, dog. Come on,
Yeah,
dog.
that's right.
It's trippy. This kind of outlines the Cain and Abel story because Adam endeavored to substitute offerings with fruit of the land for the blood sacrifices and the religious ceremonies, and we know that's why Cain and Abel beefed because
That's right.
Cain was giving fruit and Abel was giving veggies, right? No, the other way around. Abel was giving meat, Cain was giving veggies, and Abel kept making fun of Cain. Haha, people like my sacrifices more than you. No one wants that fucking bullshit fruit. And the fool turned around with the rock and went, "What dash?" Smashed him in the brain matter everywhere. Then he got kicked out of the garden. Everybody knows the Cain and Abel story, but it just shows you that that is a manifestation of underlying energy that it explains in this paragraph right here. Their father was trying to do this, but the surrounding tribes weren't having it. He who sheds man's blood is gonna live by the sword, die by the sword. Live by the gun, die by the gun. Even Jesus said that to Peter when they all brandished the swords in the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, "Yeah, you live by the sword. He who lives by the sword will die by the sword." So, fuck around and find out. You keep fucking around with that shit, you're gonna get it back at you.
That's a great connection you just made there with the offerings. They tried to substitute the offerings of the fruit of the land for the blood sacrifices in their religious ceremonies that had made little progress. So, picture in your mind, everyone, primitive cultures, tribes, fear of spirits, early ideas of religion and how to appease the gods. They're sacrificing animals. Same thing that the Jews were doing because they had that also as a part of their primitive religion from the far past. Abraham was a part of that. He wanted to do animal sacrifice. God did not tell him to do animal sacrifice. If you think that God required us to do animal sacrifice, that's a distortion. And once you have the correct explanation, you can finally go, oh, Yahweh did not actually ever command the animal sacrifice. It was written like that because the people thought that was necessary. Even Adam and Eve were trying to teach the native tribes, don't kill and sacrifice animals. Let's just do fruit instead. This thing was never necessary. And you see this fight is like 37,000 years of fighting for this sacrificial doctrine. And Cain and Abel, they were literally fighting over this. And there's even more to that story because I guess Cain was from more, let's see, they were both Cain, one of them was more connected to the other tribes because his father was Cano, who was from one of the local tribes. And so Cain brought the meat, right? In the Cain and Abel story. Is that what you
Abel
had?
brought the meat.
Abel brought the meat. I'm trying to think
And was taunting Cain.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like who would have been like why one of them would have been more connected to the fruit than because one of them was, let's see.
Good question. I don't know. Good question.
Who was
I
Abel?
think that story gets
Abel's
revealed in the next
parentage. Yeah.
75.
Okay. Then maybe we'll just wait till we get to
That's
it.
what I'm saying. In my head, I can't speak authoritatively, but Abel is either a pure line, and I don't think he is. I think Abel is the kid of Adam.
and
Because remember,
Leota.
Adam had a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam and Leota. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then Leota died in childbirth, and then
Mhm.
Eve. So I think. Do you remember that Magma? It was Abel, Cain's kid with, or Cain's kid. It was Abel, Adam's kid with the evolutionary Leota. Were Cain and Abel both half mixed breeds?
I believe between Cain and Abel, one of them was the pure line Nodite, and one of
Yeah,
them
so
was
Abel was a pure line.
yeah, he was
Well,
pure line,
if he brought
and
the
And
meat,
Cain.
Why would Abel have been? Let me confirm that. Who brought the meat?
You're
Who
right.
brought the
Why, if
veggies?
Abel was a pure line, then
Why was
why
he
would he
bringing the
bring meat?
meat?
Because they were vegetarians. Yeah, the Adamites were vegetarians, right?
Well, because in the second garden, I think the culture quickly descended back into a more regular human kind of situation.
Okay.
And yeah, I remember, if I remember correctly, Abel practiced agriculture, like horticulture with plants, and Cain practiced like hunting and stuff like that. They kind of had different attitudes about it. And I think Cain still believed in animal sacrifice because of his contact with all the neighboring tribes and all that.
Actually, well, it is Abel in the biblical
Yeah.
story.
Abel's
Abel brings
pure.
the meat, and then Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as his offering. So that suggests
Okay,
Cain was more on kind of Adam, the traditional side of the Edenic teaching, which
I
was
think I
don't
got
do
that
animal
backwards.
sacrifices.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I don't know, just a lot of fascinating details. I don't know if we want to, how long we want to stick on it right now to try and figure that out, but
Yeah, I mean it's in 76. I'll just read it real quick. Um, Now in those days, it was customary to make offerings to the priesthood of the things at hand. Herders would bring their flocks, of the fruits of the fields. Farmers would bring the fruits of the fields. And in accordance with this custom, Cain and Abel likewise made periodic offerings to the priests. The two boys had many times argued about the relative merits of their vocations. Abel was not slow to note that preference was shown for his animal sacrifices. In vain did Cano appeal to the traditions of the first Eden, to the former preference for the fruits of the fields. But this Abel would not allow, and he taunted his older brother in his discomfiture. So, okay, so Abel wasn't even born until the second garden. So I guess they had already like kind of degenerated into their fallen
yeah,
state. So then it says he was a full Adamite and he was taunting his brother. So they're not like perfect beings. Um,
that's
He
right.
was they were
Yeah,
still making sacrifices to the priesthood, so apparently it wasn't as like celestial as you think it is, you know. Um, that's trippy. So yeah, I guess he just brought animals because that was his vocation. He was at animal husbandry. So whatever you were doing, I guess he wasn't really about like eating. I was wondering, does he eat meat then, or is he just herding the animals and getting like their milk and then using the sacrifice and then offering that as a sacrifice? You know, or was he actually eating the meat too? Because you can be a herd and a shepherd and not eat the meat. But
he
when it
probably
comes
ate
down to
the meat.
sacrifice time, yeah, I'm thinking that too. He probably ate the meat. But when it comes down to sacrifice time, you bring a calf.
Yeah,
And then, but that's a good point you made up. Why would Abel have the meat when he's full line Adamic?
yeah, I guess it's at that point it's yeah, the ideas are sort of degenerating
Yeah.
even at that stage in the garden. They're like Adam and Eve. I'm sure they tried to teach the right way, but because they couldn't like get attraction, they even had a hard time kind of keeping their own kids, because if the culture around you is sort of forming in its own way, and you can't like make them change or do it differently. Like Adam and Eve, they're not militaristic. They're not gonna like fight people to make sure they do it right. Um,
Yeah, you're right.
so they just kind of gotta let it be, I guess, and their kids, kind of choose their own way based on the relative culture forming around them, which is not entirely the proper way Adam and Eve wanted it to be.
And I think it also kind of implies that Adam and Eve were so busy because the planet was so messed up, they just didn't have the resources to keep their eyes on everything at once. So, you
yeah,
know, Adam's over here trying to confederate the tribal plans while his kids are over here fucking around doing stupid Um, it's like the pastor. You know, you can get the entire congregation, but you can't get your kids at home to stop being crazy.
yeah.
So
Right.
let's finish it out. 8, the legend of creation. The story of the creation of Urantia in 6 days was based on the tradition that Adam and Eve had spent just 6 days in their initial survey of the garden. This circumstance lent almost sacred sanction to the time period of the week, which had been originally introduced by the Dalmatians, the Anunnaki. Adam spending 6 days inspecting the garden and formulating preliminary plans for organization was not prearranged. It was worked out from day to day. Wow. The choosing of the seventh day for worship was wholly incidental to the facts herewith narrated. The legend of the making of the world in 6 days was an afterthought. In fact, more than 30,000 years afterwards. One feature of the narrative, the sudden appearance of the sun and the moon, may have taken origin in the traditions of the one-time sudden emergence of the world from a dense space cloud of minute matter, which had long obscured both the sun and the moon. That's trippy as
That's an
fuck, dog.
insane little factoid that they just throw in there.
Yeah, just throw it in there. So at one point in time, when evolutionary humans were on planet Earth, we were in a space cloud that was obscuring the sun and the moon. What?
Like the light could pass through,
What?
but the actual sphere, like they wouldn't see the source.
That's like what? What kind of times was that? What was the
Yeah.
mythology? What, like, that's crazy.
They don't
Like
give us a
Lord of the
date for
Rings,
that.
maybe. Well, maybe how J.R. Tolkien says he was channeling, and these were actually past events for the Lord of the Rings. Maybe that
Yeah.
was during the
What? There's no
Galactic
sun in
Cloud
Lord of the
era.
Rings in Middle Earth. That's what Middle Earth is
Yeah,
before the
yeah,
cloud era.
before the cloud. Yeah, figure it out. Look at that, solving fucking mysteries. I love fucking me some Lord of the Rings. The story of creating Eve out of Adam's rib is a confused condensation of the Adamic arrival and the celestial surgery connected with the interchange of living substances associated with the coming of the corporeal staff of the planetary prince more than 450,000 years previously.
Wow.
If you didn't know, now you know. The majority of the world's peoples have been influenced by the tradition that Adam and Eve had physical forms created for them upon their arrival on Urantia. The belief in man's having been created from clay was well nigh universal in the Eastern Hemisphere. This tradition can be traced from the Philippine Islands around the world to Africa, and many groups accepted this story of man's clay origin by some form of special creation in the place of earlier beliefs in progressive creation, evolution. So that was just a prevalent way of thinking around the entire globe, I guess. Maybe that was like pre-staff, like that was just the word of mouth story that went around the planet.
Hmm.
Away, or pre-Anunnaki for the viewers out there. Away from the influences of Dalmatia and Eden, mankind tended toward the belief in the gradual ascent of the human race. The fact of evolution is not a modern discovery. The ancients understood the slow and evolutionary character of human progress. The early Greeks had a clear idea of this, despite their proximity to Mesopotamia. Although the various races of Earth became sadly mixed up in their notions of evolution, nevertheless, many of the primitive tribes believed and taught that they were the descendants of various animals. Primitive peoples made a practice of selecting their totems, the animals of their supposed ancestry. Certain North American tribes believed they originated from beavers and coyotes. Certain African tribes teach that they are descendant from the hyena. A Malay tribe from the lemur. A New Guinea group from the parrot. The Babylonians, because of immediate contact with the remnants of the civilization of the Adamites, enlarged and embellished the story of man's creation. They taught that he had descended directly from the gods. They held an aristocratic origin for the race, which was incompatible with even the doctrine of creation out of clay. That's crazy. So the Babylonians, who we consider like the modern Sumerians, they were even old and they were already distorting the truth at that time to embellish. The Old Testament account of creation dates from long after the time of Moses. He never taught the Hebrews such a distorted story, but he did present a simple and condensed narrative of creation to the Israelites, hoping thereby to augment his appeal to worship the Creator, the Universal Father, whom he called Lord God of Israel. In his early teachings, Moses very wisely did not attempt to go back of Adam's time. And since Moses was the supreme teacher of the Hebrews, the stories of Adam became intimately associated with those of creation. That the earlier traditions recognized pre-Adamic civilization is clearly shown by the fact that later editors, intending to eradicate all reference to human affairs before Adam's time, neglected to remove the telltale reference to Cain's emigration to the land of Nod, where he took himself a wife. Land of Nod being the land of the rebel Anunnaki. Nod was the leader of the rebel Anunnaki. The Hebrews had no written language in general usage for a long time after they reached Palestine. They learned the use of an alphabet from the neighboring Philistines, who were political refugees from the higher civilization of Crete. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's so Crete, they're like kind of Greco, kind of Greek descendants. Cool. It's weird. We Philistine in modern words, like that's how you call people like dumb and stupid, like an oaf. What do you Philistine? But little did people know they are descendants of the Greco-Crete civilization, which was an Adamic derivative. The Hebrews did little writing until about 900 BC, and having no written language until such a late date, they had several different stories of creation in circulation. But after the Babylonian captivity, they inclined more towards accepting a modified Mesopotamian version. Interesting. I wonder if any of those older Hebrew creation stories are floating around anywhere from Hebrews who weren't near the Mesopotamian version. Jewish tradition became crystallized about Moses, and because he endeavored to trace the lineage of Abraham back to Adam, the Jews assumed that Adam was the first of all mankind. Yahweh was the creator, and since Adam was supposed to be the first man, he must have made the world just prior to making Adam. And then the tradition of Adam's 6 days got woven into the story, which the result that almost 1,000 years after Moses' sojourn on earth, the tradition of creation in 6 days was written out and subsequently credited to him. So he didn't even write it down. It was written down thousands of years after, and then they gave him credit. When the Jewish priests returned to Jerusalem, they had already completed the writing of their narrative of the beginning of things. Soon they made claims that this recital was a recently discovered story of creation written by Moses. These Hebrews are crafty little snakes, dude. They like forge something and they bring it up. Like, look, we found what Moses said. Believe us, we have the authority now. Crazy. Um, they're literally doing exactly what Lucifer was charging Michael of doing, falsifying information for authoritative power.
Pretty ironic.
Yeah, pretty ironic. But the contemporary Hebrews of around 500 BC did not consider these writings to be divine revelations. They looked upon them as much later peoples regard mythological narratives. Interesting. This spurious document, reputed to be the teachings of Moses, was brought to the attention of Ptolemy, the Greek king of Egypt, who had it translated into Greek by a commission of 70 scholars for his new library at Alexandria. And so this account found its place among those writings, which subsequently became a part of later collections of sacred scriptures of the Hebrew and Christian religions. And through identification with these theological systems, such concepts for a long time profoundly influenced the philosophy of many Occidental peoples. That's crazy. So just the fact that Ptolemy was so rich and decided to create a big library, if you just copy a bunch of documents and put it in a library over time, it influences the society in that region because
Becomes
that's their
somebody's
standard
origin
reference now.
story. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Just by stockpiling stories. It's fucking crazy. And a lot of people say like modern society can be traced back to this first king, the first guy who was like, there's a first king, I forget his name in all of history, who was the first guy to start documenting everything. And people thought he was crazy. No one before him documented. He'd document everything every day, like how much grain we had, how much water, and he did this over 15, 20 years. And people thought he was crazy. And then they realized he got all the power because he was the only person with the documents of everything.
Oh,
Everybody would come to him for reference for the seeds, for the lay of the land, the water, what he said, what she said. So just by documenting shit and compiling it in a library, you gain power. It's a gnarly. That's what the CIA does, the Central Intelligence Agency. They gather information, document, organize it, and now they get the power. So it's a weird trick,
yeah.
but you can do that. Yeah. All right. Shout out to Ptolemy, and not shout out to whoever started the fire of burning down the Library of Alexandria. All that wisdom and knowledge lost. Imagine if that was still up,
Dang.
dude. There's probably Dalmatian writings in there, shit like that, like Caligastic writings. They're still somewhere. Fucking, they're still somewhere.
Under the Vatican.
Yeah, I guarantee. Yeah, you're right. I guarantee the Vatican probably has the majority of this shit in like a secret place. And the Pope just died. A little episode coming soon next week. The conspiracy behind the Pope death.
You want to do a Pope episode?
No, I don't want to do a Pope episode.
The
Hell no, I don't.
Conclave.
Yeah.
It is funny,
see
you
how
know,
it's
that
shaped like a
Conclave show
serpent?
just came out. It's literally about the Pope dies and there's a conspiracy, and then the show focuses on how much power dynamics there are behind choosing the Pope, and it's kind of like a dramatic conspiracy
Oh.
See what
going
I'm
on.
saying, Magma?
It's kind of
See,
I don't know
they're
if there's
putting it on the
it's just weird
screens.
that it's like it's
Plausible
there,
deniability.
new show, really popular right now, and it's literally happening right now. The Pope just died.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
the rebels saving their ass in cosmic court. So
Plausible deniability, yeah.
tell Gabriel, look, we showed him what we were doing. We showed it to them. They thought it was entertainment, those dumbasses, but we showed it to them. We put it on every screen in
Documentary.
every house. Yeah, and they're the ones who laughed and said, okay, whatever. Not our fault. They took it like that. All right. The Christian teachers perpetuated the belief in the fiat creation of the human race. And all this led directly to the formation of the hypothesis of a one-time golden age of utopian bliss, and the theory of the fall of man, or Superman, which accounted for the non-utopian condition of society. These outlooks on life and man's place in the universe were at best discouraging, since they are predicated upon a belief in retrogression rather than progression, as well as implying a vengeful deity who had vented wrath upon the human race in retribution for the errors of certain one-time planetary administrators. The Golden Age is a myth, but Eden was a fact, and the garden civilization was actually overthrown. Adam and Eve carried on in the garden for 117 years, when, through the impatience of Eve and the errors of judgment of Adam, they presumed to turn aside from the ordained way, speedily bringing disaster upon themselves and ruinous retardation upon the developmental progression of all of Urantia. And this story was narrated and given to us by Salonia, the seraphic voice in the garden, directly from the
There you
Bible.
have
You
it.
guys remember the Adam and Eve story when Eve commits her flaw with the serpent? The voice of the garden with the flaming sword banishes Adam and Eve. So literally this narrative, this paper was given to us by a being who was actually there. The being who banished Adam and Eve from the garden. So I'm pretty sure this is as accurate as we.
As accurate as you can get. There you have it, folks.
That's trippy.
That was the Adam and Eve story, and
I realized I was wrong. I said they lived for 111, 117 years. I think my brain was pulling out how far they were in the first garden for. So they lived longer.
Okay. And yeah, we'll get into it in upcoming episodes. We have paper 75, The Default of Adam and Eve, and 76, The Second Garden. And it goes on after that, so I mean, got plenty of material to cover.
Yeah, dude, that was just like scratching the surface. We were just talking about Adam and Eve landing and like their basic organization. We haven't even gotten to the part where Eve makes that first sin. What is that? Is that original sin? Is that what they call it? The original sin?
Yeah.
Doctrine of original sin all sources back
Yeah,
to
so-
Adam and Eve eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Exactly. And we haven't even gotten to that part yet. I know you guys are feasting on these concepts. Like, god damn.
Story gets
The
juicy.
harvest is plentiful. I'm taking bites of fruits, bites of pomegranates, bites of the tree of life, washing it down with a steak, eating some lamb from the exotic hills of Turkey, hanging out with celestials. This is amazing. What the heck? And we still didn't even get to the original sin part. There you go, baby. Forbidden Scrolls Live. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to come with that heat next Sunday. Either we're going to pick off where we left off and just go to the default of Adam and Eve where Eve messes up, or if we find something else throughout the week, we'll pick something, we'll do that for a bit, and then we'll jump back to the story the next week. So keep it locked, keep it in tune. You guys got any final words?
Just know that there was no original sin. I mean, like, Adam and Eve, they're doing their best. They kind of screwed up, and we'll learn about that. But the story has kind of been warped, put us in this shame that there was a golden age and we've fallen. But as we know, it's just a progressive journey. Getting a little better, kind of dipping down. You know, if you were to look at a curve of civilization getting better and worse, kind of goes in waves, but it always kind of climbs up little by little. You know, so we're getting there. Someday in the distant future, maybe in 1,000 years, maybe in 100 years. We'll get there.
Yeah, hope this has shed some light on the mythological concepts that we have in the summarized version of the story that has gone through many generations and written down this way and attributed to Moses, even though he didn't tell it like that. All these different things. And look, uh, I guess it's like you almost have to take a step back if you're gonna try and look at these stories, like, because if you're really like dead set on the biblical narrative, the reason that you're so dead set is not because you inherently trust all ancient sacred text. No, it's because you believe something very specific about the way the Bible was written, and that was taught to you by the priesthood, the pastors, the theologians. They taught you that the Bible is divinely inspired, and you've taken that statement to then think that when you read this story, you interpret it literally, and there's no room for other possibilities in how the story actually happened. That's kind of where a lot of people sit. And if you're one of those people and you read this and you're like, no way, it can't have been like that just because it's not how the Bible says it. Well, it's like, one, there's a whole bunch of overlaps right here. Like this is expanding what the Bible is saying. It's pointing out what the Bible got right, and it did get some things right, but it also like summarized and kind of made, like, you can't interpret Genesis 100% literally and get all your ideas and stuff about the origin of creation in the universe. And this is the alternative. Like, look, here's a problem. The Genesis story is incomplete. It's a summary. There's a lot of mystery about it. The solution is, here's it explained in very much detail in which those gaps are closed. Now, when you read both of those stories, now it's up to you and your individual spiritual journey, your individual connection with God to weigh out those differences. What is going to provide, I don't know, the most value or whatever. And so that's kind of where we're kind of leaving you, I guess, if you're listening to this. So, we leave it fully up to your free will to sort of interpret which story you like best, what you think is most plausible. And, we believe that no matter what, having both these stories in your head now, you will have expanded your concepts either way, no matter what you choose to finally believe in.
Yeah, because if it's true, if this really is transmitted from an angel that was actually there, this would be our most reliable source of information on the events that happened. So keep an open mind. I mean, it could be possible.
Heck yeah. Receive that download, baby. Receive that transmission, apply it to your life, and activate Super Soldier. Hey, snap out of it. Snap out of it. You're on Earth. You're alive. You're here, right now. Do not squander the opportunity. 80 to 100 years of life isn't that long. You're alive right here, right now, whether you're 15, 20, 30, 40. Snap out of it. I'm smacking you in the face right now. Wake up. You are more than what you think you are. You are a divine cosmic intelligence that is on planet Earth right now to facilitate a change. You might have been caught up in some distorted concepts, You might have been caught up by the inertia of planet Earth because there's so many distorted concepts you have to navigate through. They can take a little chunk out of you, take a little chunk, weigh you down back here. Oh, damn, I bought a car I shouldn't have bought. Oh, that weighs you down. Oh, I had a kid on it. Oh, whoa, that weighs you down. It's fine. The inertia is strong, but you can overcome. That's why we created this YouTube channel, so that we can hopefully allow you to regain your cosmic inheritance, so that you can realize that you are a son and a daughter, a son or a daughter of the Father, that you can literally experience the highest reality that the universe has to offer. You can achieve all your goals, and this is the reason why you were created. I know there's no instruction manual, there's no clear path, and that's why we're here. We're here to hopefully show you that path and hopefully help give you that cosmic instruction manual. So you can do it. Join the legacy. Hit us up. The email is in the description. If you want to hit your potential, if you want to grow 1%, 2%, 5% mentally, physically, and spiritually every single day, and you want to taste the pinnacle of reality, hit us up. Join TheLegacyFHP@gmail.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that like button to get this information to the front page. Adam and Eve's story. Mysteries are revealed. Mysteries unlocked. This has been the Forbidden Scrolls, baby. Debake the Wise. Tate Chilla. Magma Sloth. Go buy yourself a shirt. Happy Sunday. We love you guys.
Peace out.